The 2020 U.S. Senior Championship features 10 of the strongest chess players in America over the age of 50. Over the course of 9 rounds, some of the most decorated players in U.S. history will do battle for the prize fund of $50,000. This field of accomplished veterans, which includes 2019 champion Alexander Shabalov, has racked up 13 U.S. championships, 27 World Open victories, and numerous Olympiad appearances between them. Championship DNA will be on full display in a tournament where every participant knows what it takes to bring home a major title.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Championship October. Well, we're done the U.S. Girls Junior and the 2020 U.S. Junior. What a wild ride that was. And now we welcome you to the 2020 U.S. Senior Chess Championship, which will be held over the next few days. I am super excited about this one. I am Jennifer Shahade, and I am here with Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley to call this event and its storied field of players.
Well, thank you, Jen. As always, a pleasure to be alongside you and to call the action with Maurice. What a treat for me. It feels like a reunion of old foxes. And let us find out if these old warriors have kept some of the competitive spirit that brought them so many illustrious championships. Maurice, this is something special.
Absolutely, Yaz. And legends never die. And these are indeed legends of U.S. chess. How many championships we've seen between them 20, 30 years ago. They used to tear up the tournament circuit. They were like gangsters when they walked in the building. Now we're going to see if these OGs got it and show their old magic that we're going to get to enjoy.
Well, let's take a look at the roster here of players, Jen.
Well, our roster includes our 2 top seeds, actually with the exact same rating, if you're wondering if this is going to be competitive. Grandmaster Larry Christiansen, style a little different, one might say, than Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov. But there's also Igor Novikov. There is Alexander Shabalov, our defending champion. Also excited to see Patrick Wolff in the mix, as he doesn't play a lot of competitive chess these days.
No, not at all. And I see Shelby Getz. It seems like Shelby must have made it as a qualifier, Jen?
That's right. He qualified for the event. So the underdog indeed, FM Shelby Getz. But dreams don't die even for seniors.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at our format, Jen.
Well, if you've been watching any of these previous events, you'll be used to our format, which is a 10-player rapid round robin with 3 games a day. Time control game 25 with a 5-second increment. Definitely give some time for strategies in the beginning and then some wild blitz scrambles at the end of the game. If there is a tie for first, we will have playoffs and nice little prize fund of $50,000.
Very nice. And our schedule, Jen.
3 days of chess. So today and tomorrow, you're going to enjoy a weekend of incredible senior chess. And then on Monday, we finish it out with the last 3 rounds and that potential playoff. So now we have Maurice to talk to us a little about the incredible amount of accomplishments we have in this field.
Indeed. If you're a youngin', you may be thinking about Fabiano Caruana, Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So. That's the top of the U.S. food chain. But those of us who've been around a while, we know that these players really used to be just that legendary at the top, that accomplished. We see these 10 players here, and I just remember looking up to all of them, virtually all of them on this list, thinking, wow, I want to play like them. And I got a chance to play against several of them myself. but their accomplishments are simply extraordinary. As we dig a little bit deeper, we see, of course, 9 GMs. Of course, they would have that many grandmasters in the field. But even more so are the things that they actually ended up doing. First of all, 5 of them were U.S. junior champions. I'm not sure they're remembering those days going back 4 decades or so. But yes, half the field had shown that promise at a very young age, to be sure. And in addition to that, 35 combined titles, U.S. Open and closed championships. 35, that's a heck of a number. And people saw these gentlemen walk in the building and would think, oh my goodness, guess who's gonna win? Or at least was a favorite to win. So just an extraordinary number there. And we should also note that we have 5 Hall of Famers. Absolutely. And maybe you might even see a couple more coming out of that list. Well, just incredible accomplishments. And this is just a partial list, by the way, of the many, many accomplishments that they've had. Let's drill a little bit deeper into a couple of these players as we look at Big Larry Christiansen, 64 years old. He's been residing in Cambridge, Massachusetts for quite some time. 3 times the U.S. champion, but he's got so many accomplishments as well. Larry famously jumped immediately to the Grandmaster title before ever becoming an IM. Just one go, bang. And he's won several junior championships. As we've mentioned, he's played 9 times for the Olympic team, and his style is just extraordinary. He's got books called Storming the Barricades and Rocking the Ramparts. So you know what kind of chess he brings to the table. It should be incredible to watch him. And another player who plays slash and burn is Alexander Shabalov. We call him Shaba, 53 years old. How did he get in the seniors? Pittsburgh. He lives in Pittsburgh right now. He's the defending champion. He's won the U.S. championship 4 times, 7 times U.S. Open champion, 4 of those by himself, no ties. And he has that aggressive, tactical, go kill them style. He's from Riga, from Latvia, the school of Mikhail Tal, Alexei Shurov. Those players bring the fire on board. And that is indeed what Alex always does. An affable guy, but not on the chessboard. You sit in front of him, he's thinking only one thing: where's the king? I got to get that slashed and crushed and ripped apart. I mean, I'm so excited to watch these players play. It's going to be absolute fun.
Yabba dabba do. And Jen, let's take a look at the first round pairings.
Well, we've got a big one in round 1. We have a 7-time U.S. championship matchup as Joel Benjamin, who's won 3 titles, is playing against Alexander Shabalov, who has 4 titles. And, you know, we might see these guys in the middle of the cross table in this event, but don't make a mistake about it. They win when it counts, and that's why they have so many titles. Also, of course, I'm looking forward to seeing Gregory Kaidanov and Patrick Wolff play and see what Wolff brings into the action from his many years of switching from chess to finance.
Yes, a hedge fund manager. And drill a little deeper on that $50,000 prize fund for us, Jen.
$50,000 at stake here, including $12,000 for first, $8,000 for second. Remember that this event was originally planned for the beautiful St. Louis Chess Club. And while I'm sure the players are sad not to be able to attend in person, it's really wonderful of the generosity of the Sink Fields and the St. Louis Chess Club that the same prize fund is offered for a 3-day online event.
Absolutely. And Maurice, talk to me a little bit about this time control. I want to say these players are used to playing classical chess over the board. And when they're playing online, they're playing 3-minute chess and bullet chess. I mean, I've got a feeling they're going to have some difficulties adjusting to a 25+5 time control.
Can't be all 10 of them. I'm sure that a couple of them will do quite well and adjust quite nicely as the games have in fact begun. And we see there Joel has played Knight of 3 against Shaba. But you'll see that, I think, as a key to this event. The players who adjust quickly to this world of virtual chess, online chess, rapid chess with a little bit of an increment, mouse slips, dare we say, all those issues might come in. Not because they haven't played online chess, as you said, they play casually all the time, but
Right.
the issue will be in a tournament setting. This is just simply different for them to be playing in a US championship and then be the first time I think any of them will have played a serious rapid online event. I may be misspeaking there, but I don't recall any of these players in any big time rapid events. Maybe some of the blitz events that have taken place in the past. And we'll see whether or not they can adjust.
Well, there's a lot of blitz events, blitz tournaments. Chess.com hosts regular monthly blitz competition, but rapid competition online, no. Just it doesn't happen. So we'll see how the players do. Knight f3, g3. Well, I think of these like KG openings. Didn't Joel write a book like Foxy Openings or something? I attribute
think you're
something
right.
like,
I
yeah, and he's like very cagey in the opening. Knight f3 c5, by the way, just let me take that back. Knight f3 c5. Joel Benjamin, much of his career was an e2 e4 man, and if he wanted to play an open Sicilian, this was Shabalov's invitation for him to do that. By playing g2 g3, he's basically saying, no, I'm more like I'm willing to play Catalan, maybe a reverse Grunfeld kind of thing. And with the move g7, g6, Shabalov is saying, okay, but are you going to play an English or are you going to play the c2, c3? What would we call that? And d4 as symmetrical Grunfeld, I want to say, with g3.
Yeah, that would definitely transpose in that direction. But without c4 on the board, you said c3, d4. We saw some moves just get flicked really quickly there.
Quickly, yeah. When the players did decide on the address of the king, kingside castling by white, then very quickly we saw bishop knight c6 come as well. Now here is the problem that white has. If he tries to play e2, e4 and play for a Fischer attack, black has the flexibility of playing his knight to e7, and I don't think the King's Indian Fischer attack ever gets going. If you play for c2, c4, it's going to be very hard to get in the move d2, d4, especially if black puts a Botvinnik pawn structure with d6 and e5. So it really, I mean, I hate to say it, but essentially, I think we're a favorite to seeing some type of variation like the one I'm showing on the board, which, as we know, is a pretty even Steven kind of battle.
Could we go to a game that has got my interest? One of the underdogs in the event, Shelby Getz, you know that the players will be aiming at him saying, okay, you didn't used to rub shoulders with us at the US championships and the Olympic teams and the like. May not have the same level of respect, but he's here. He qualified to play in this event. And I'm sure he knows he's got the target and he wants to do well. But look at this opening position. You don't see this one every day.
No, e7, e5 in this. So we've got a Chigorin with knight c3, used to knight c6, but e5. So if we take, obviously, attacking the knight, that really forces, if you will, knight takes. And it does give white this opportunity to gain some space in the center. And that is what Yermo did. He did take, and the players have just played knight takes d4. Jump in here, Jen. You're familiar with any of this? Not to my eyes.
No. This looks like a really fun opening, though, as certainly Alex Yermolinsky playing against the underdog, who, by the way, he qualified via the National Senior Tournament of State Champions. So that was an event place last year in Orlando. Shelby Getz from Maryland won the event as an underdog in that event, and here he is. Well, we do have our grandmaster analyst Varuzhin Akovian, who points out that there's been over 300 games online, and Not sure what.
Did you say 300
Over
games
300, yes.
in this
Wow.
line with E5? Where have
Yeah,
I been?
well,
Exactly. Clearly hiding under a rock. I mean, me too. I've been under the same rock, Maurice.
Ben Feingold played this 3 times, lost twice and had 1 draw. We played this 3 times with Black. Okay, Ben Feingold. Wonder why he's not here. Is he 50 yet? I think he's about 50.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely eligible. Yeah. Definitely eligible. Probably just
he has a pretty high rating. He's good at racking and blitz. He would be scary
Yes.
in this field, wouldn't he?
Yes, I was watching Ben stream, and he was disappointed that he wasn't playing. He was really hoping that he would be playing. I think he mentioned on a stream that he needed one player to decline their invitation, and he was in. G2, G3, that looks like an awfully tame move to my eyes. G2, G3, what? I mean, the bishop really belongs on G2? I wasn't sure. I like E3, E4 gaining space, and after G3, Shelby immediately said, okay, let me develop. And now Yermo is thinking, because if you let Black just go bishop C5, castles, this bishop will find good squares on the diagonal, and Black will have free and easy development. We can easily imagine, we can easily imagine this knight ending up retreating either voluntarily or through a kick to the D6 square. It looks pretty good. I don't think G3 gave Black any issues.
No.
And it was a nice guess by Shelby.
G3 only played once by a 20 player. Yeah.
Out of 300, we've got, I'm still reeling at that extraordinary number. I look at this position and I think if Black can get away with this, of course you'd play it all the time. Maybe definitely a surprise weapon being used here. And speaking of surprises, we know that Patrick Wolff, I mean, I've known Patrick for many, many years. I was actually his second when he was playing in the interzonal in Beale way back in 1993. He came oh so close. Our preparation worked against Dreyev, and Patrick didn't kill him at a crushing position. He was trying to qualify there. But Patrick, known as a theoretician, when he knew his lines, I mean, he knew his lines down, and he won 2 U.S. championship titles. Here, he played an early B5. I'd like to go back to move 6 when he played this move B5 after D4, as Gregory was doing this double fianchetto, and Patrick said, well, I'm going to do it too, but this time with a pawn advanced to be able to capture on C4. I dare you to exploit it. And Gregory just left it alone. I mean, you see a move like that on the board, you'd like to do something more aggressive about it, but Gregory said, okay, I'm just going to play straightforward chess, no tactics. I trust you on the diagonal that you worked out the variations. And I think Patrick got to steal B capture C for free because he got a pawn from the side, capturing a pawn more in the center. And then later he even got in the move C5. So just chipping away at Gregory's center. What's wrong with Black's position?
Absolutely. And move A7, A5 included as well. That's a really nice move because as you were talking about this structure, A2 and B3 are, you know, this pawn on A5 does a really nice job at restraining the queenside majority. In this position, if that pawn were on a nice normal square like A6, B2, B3, B4 would definitely be having White's attention. And Black looks like he's cruised a little bit past equality, and he's doing very well in my estimation. You mentioned the interzonal in Beale. Did you say 1995? 1993. Because in 1985, I played in the Beale in interzonal in Beale. I was second behind Raphael Vaganyan. So when you said Beale interzonal, I was like, what? Were you in the Beale interzonal?
Not in 85.
No.
I wouldn't have been invited to be his second.
Okay,
back
but
in
you
that.
were.
I was too weak in '85.
Right,
But I was a little bit better later on.
Came up.
So Shelby just played C6. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Shelby, did you say?
I just so fascinated by this game because
Black was doing so well. It's like
better.
it's unusual. And this move, Bishop F5, now that to my mind is an incredibly ambitious move. Why? Because it basically says I'm threatening to play knight c2. I'm provoking the move e2, e4. And if I provoke e2, e4, I want to maintain my knight on this great square on d4. White previously could have kicked it away. Now, after this move, e2, e4, this knight is rather tucked in. It's settled in very nicely. Bishop g4, always a nice little move to disturb the white queen. Try to provoke the move f2, f3. Those pawn weaknesses, the pawns don't move backwards. Queen d3 was your most choice, and c7, c6. Once again, what can I say? Shelby's position looks great, just simply great.
And I was going to say early, as the structure was settling down, that pawn on d5, the only argument it has is to say I restrain the pawn on c7. It can't go anywhere. It may be captured, and that's the argument for having this nice pawn on d5. But if Black gets in the move c6, then Black solves that problem pretty readily. And now this pawn on d5 has to be mindful because it could be undermined. And we see the move h3 has been played. It could be undermined. And then Black could try to figure out later how to attack this guy. It's good. That knight on d4 is so rock solid. And White has not nearly completed development. Neither has Black. But White has to be careful. The bishop jumps into the game, leaps into the game from f8, and castles easily as we see bishop retreat to d7. And then Black is just talking initiative all day. I'm also worried a little bit about the move b5 at some point. I mean, you've got to feel like this is a position Shelby can't believe he got against the Yerminator.
Exactly. I used to call Yermo the Yerminator, combination of Yermo and Terminator. Knight f3, and that to me is an indication that, well, things really have not gone White's way. For example, if you, well, hold on, knight takes e5. So I want to do it in the fall. I want to get this position. I'll show you the position I want, okay, as Black.
He's captured just like you.
And put the bishop on d6, where it not only defends this pawn on e5, but it really blockades the pawn on d5. That's very important in terms of this bishop on g2. So, I mean, I'm seeing this nice majority on the king side for Black, nice center majority for White. He's got the passer already on d5, but that passer is not great. In fact, it's firmly blockaded and it's not disturbing Black's piece development. We can see that Black will very easily castle. And, well, the only thing I would look to prevent would be a future bishop g5. And again, I'm very satisfied with Shelby's position. Let's just go around the tables, Jen, and we're going to take a peek of the game between Igor Novikov and the Big C, Larry Christiansen.
He's got a lot of nicknames, huh?
Yeah, Larry Christiansen. I used to joke with Larry that he reminded me of Babe Ruth, that he had the body type of the great legendary baseball player. But the difference between Babe Ruth and Larry is like when Larry swung for the fences, he might hit himself and sometimes knock himself out. But if he ever hit you with his tactical bat, you weren't getting enough. I don't care if you were Karpov or Kasparov or anybody. Larry carried a very big, formidable tactical battle axe.
Didn't he famously beat Karpov in 11 moves?
Yeah,
yes, he did.
With a double attack, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, little
Queen D1.
Queen D1.
Queen D1 was the move White played, a retreating move that Karpov hitting two pieces, a bishop on D6 and a knight on h5.
Yeah, we all remember that because it's just like that idea that you could beat Karpov in 10 moves. Wow.
Well, it got a little worse because he was staying with me at the time. I was living in Amsterdam, and he came and stayed with me. So I asked him about the game, and he said that when Karpov resigned, Larry said, "We want to. You want to go analyze it?"
Did Larry say that?
I said, "Larry, you didn't say that to Anatoly Karpov." He said, "No, I didn't. You want to analyze it?" No.
That's a good line.
That was a great line. Now let's see what we have.
He thought, but he thought better of it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, Larry would not be invited to another tournament in Europe ever again after something like that.
Now, let's see what we've got here, because first impressions are kind of favorable for Larry. He is playing an isolated queen pawn clear. But from Larry's perspective, all of his pieces, pretty good development, pretty harmonious. This knight usually is on c6. This time it's on c5. Larry's just played the move rook c8, in a sense, positionally threatening to play knight e4. And this queen is rather on the wrong square. If you play a move like queen b1, you got to be a little bit worried that a bishop on f5 doesn't show up and chase your queen even further. My first impression is that while it's a balanced game, Larry has the easier play. I mean, it looks good. This isolated queen pawn is not under any duress and is really very well defended, in fact. So, okay, let's continue. We're just checking on Joel Benjamin. By the way, it looks like he did go for kind of a King's Indian defense Fischer attack. We'll come back to that. Let's check in on two old warriors, Dmitry Gurevich and Alexander Goldin. I always had the impression that Dmitry Gurevich was one of those players like Joel Benjamin that played in, and I'm not joking, more than 20 closed US championships. Wow. Bishop f4. Okay, we've seen this approach to the Queen's Gambit declined by Magnus Carlsen in his 2018 World Championship match versus Fabiano a lot. Now, Alexander, of course, all of these guys are very experienced. b7, b6. This old move really is considered second rate. And the old timers all thought that c7, c5 was the right way to play. So b7, b6, let's see if Dmitry could take advantage of Goldin's approach. Now, queen takes does offer the pawn on bishop takes c7, bishop b4 check. It's a well-known gambit where black gets a lot of nice development at the cost of a pawn. But Dmitry said, no, I'm going to stop bishop b4, and I'm going to quickly put pressure on the c file. c5 takes. Okay, that does not look like the critical move. To my eyes, the critical move would probably be rook c1, intending to develop with the tempo of bishop c4. He took, takes, rook c1, and white has an edge.
Just
White,
because of the better pieces, the knight on a6 is a little awkward. And also the king, the better king.
And the king, precisely, and the better king. That's exactly what it is. And for the moment, I think that Alexander has to be a little bit careful that this knight doesn't just get waylaid for a long time by this move b2, b4. Now, But
it's black's move, right?
Yeah,
right.
What is wrong with knight c5?
Well, knight c5, what about b4 and rook c7? How's that
Well,
look?
b4 would, yeah, I definitely feel like I've got to do something to stop rook c7. How about a7, a6?
Oh, because, okay, and after pawn takes c5? Pawn b5, pawn b6, and you're just going to take on a3 with the bishop?
That gets
probably with
wild.
the bishop, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
if
G2
I,
is hanging with tempo.
And now after rook c7, it is wild, isn't it?
But
yeah,
you are giving up a pawn. You're
Oh, I
arguing
know.
that you have a
but
great position anyway.
And would Yasser take it?
I would probably take it, recognizing that I'm going to be I'm a favorite to sacrifice an exchange on b8 because the bishop is actually already set up on the f4 square.
Well,
So
what about just rook g1 and bishop e5? We are kind of getting into the weeds there. Sorry, but
no, it's okay.
I was just curious about how after in this position, bishop e5, it's actually difficult for you to defend g7. Oh, you could just play g6. I guess it's not that bad in this position. You know.
Well, I mean, you have forced me to weaken a lot of dark squares around my king. Yeah.
Right. So this is one interesting line after knight c5,
But
b4. Are you forced to play a6 there to go in for these forcing lines? Maurice, what did you want to say?
in this position, the worry that I had for black was the position after bishop g2, rook g1 in this line. And I think we're going in the weeds, but they're not now. The same line you were just analyzing there. And bishop is the move e4 is what I was thinking. Instead of bishop e5 first, we don't need that tempo just yet. To first play e4 and test the bishop. Just want to know what you're going to do. You're going to give back the pawn by playing bishop c4, and then white will say, okay, now I'm actually even material, and I've got this passed pawn that's going to hit b7 with force.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do about that, and that's just going to happen.
Right.
And or are you going to play the crazy bishop a2? Actually, bishop a2, I can almost force. No, I actually can't. Instead, if you play bishop to a2, what a weird. That's a weird one. He's just asking for it. But as you said, b7 could come, and again, there's so many great tactics for white here that to look at it looks like white should have enough.
Yeah, no,
favoring white for sure.
This looks like fun. After knight c5, b4, are you right that a6 is forced? If you don't go a6, if you go like knight e4, what about knight? Because if knight e4, rook c7, let's see, do I have any way to like play like knight d2 and wiggle my way out of this somehow? No, I don't. It doesn't look like it.
There is a move that's possible, but it positionally looks undesirable, is the move bishop a6 after b4.
And you're back to the same problem.
Back to the bad knight.
Yeah,
is it the end of the world? I don't like having my knight on that square. That's for sure.
It's just one of those things that white has got this very free game. You were mentioning, Jen, when you're kind of adding up the scales there. White's king is already on e2. It's in the action. You could easily imagine that if all the rooks got traded off, White's king could quickly poke its head out and head to the c4 square, whereas black's king is still, the laggard. It's way back. So it just feels like a lot of things that are happening in the position are favoring Dmitry at this time. By the way, we always used to call Dmitry, not Dmitry, Dima. Dima was his nickname. Shall we go back to the game of the 7 champions?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You said it was a little, you didn't say boring, but you said balanced, but it actually got extremely imbalanced, Yasser, with some really interesting
E5, B5. This is the we called it the King's Indian attack that Bobby Fischer made famous from his 60 Memorable Games book. B5, Joel did not go for the immediate E5. He played instead the move bishop to E3, attacking C5, in a sense, provoking D4, which closes down this bishop's diagonal. And Joel said, okay, now that this bishop's diagonal is closed, I'm going to go for a different setup, and I'll put my knight out here on the A3 square. And sometimes it worms its way back to the B4 square. Let's see how Shaba said, give me more space. And we have caught up with the players. And Well, my take is I like black. I prefer black's position. I've always liked the advantage that having a lot more space brings. And it just feels like Joel has gone for one of these counter striking um, setups where there's no obvious weakness in White's camp, right? I mean, it's not like, hey, I'm going to target you on G3 or I'm going to target you on E4. So it's not like there's anything that is there for Shabalov to attack. It's just that, well, again, he has freer piece play. His pieces are somewhat more active thanks to this pawn, and a little bit from White's point of view, White is still going to try to be playing solid.
Something happened in Larry's
Yes.
game that I'm not really thrilled at, to be honest, is the exchange of dark squared bishops. Uh, it's one of those positions that it's not much, if anything, for White, but White wants to see the pieces get traded off. White wants to see more and more pieces leave the board, and this trade of dark square bishops, if White can just get a lock on that D4 square, then you can just say, let's trade some more and some more. And so, well, actually, I didn't expect knight takes on E4 on the other hand, because that does allow pawn takes. Although Novikov will be able to put a knight on D4, it will be unassailable on that square. But I get the feeling that black is a bit more relieved seeing this piece, seeing this capture as his pawn can fix itself. I don't think you're going to see knight takes on E4, and it looks like he's played pawn takes, knight to D4. And this situation, a bit different. Reminds me of an old Capablanca game. Maybe it's Alekhine playing with the black pieces. Classic games where black is able to just keep everything solid. And now black could somehow trade off the light square bishops and get that D3 square and be smiling.
Yeah, that's it, though, Maurice. That highly desirable trade of the light squared bishops is not going to be easy for black to execute, because bishop c4 will just take twice, and it'll cost you a pawn to make that trade. In the meanwhile, this bishop on e2 does a great job at keeping this knight at bay. The pawn on e4 no longer an isolated pawn, but nonetheless kind of a worry there on e4. And if it provokes f7, f5, well, I don't know. That could be an issue with black's king.
You're worried about that pawn, Yaz? I mean, the guy defended like 3 different times, and you spot the weakness miles away.
It's actually not defended that many times. Strangely enough, if it was white to move exactly in this moment, I think a move like b2, b4 with the idea of munch is coming. So I do see an easier play for white. Rook is either going to go to c3 or c2. The other rook is going to come over, and well, note where are the targets for black, right? Larry might dream of playing a move like queen g5, intending bishop h3. There you go. That might be the way to go in order to execute a trade of the light squared bishops. Maybe it's queen g5 that Larry is considering here.
You know that's what he's considering. It's Larry Christiansen. Queen migrate to king. I see king. I see king. That's right. Larry Christiansen. And that's where his brain will be. But look at this. He just decided to make a liar out of us and trade off the knights. Knight b3, positional move. Larry getting more positional.
Well, what am I? Oh, I'm missing knight d2. I'm sorry.
You were so after that pawn. You wanted that pawn.
Yeah, I was so after that pawn on e4 that I overlooked the fork, knight to d2, winning the exchange on f1. And that's fine. That just answers that, which means white needs another approach. Now, I mean, I hate to say it, this looks very, very even. Maybe white's for choice because black has a lot of pawns on the light squares, but
Nothing much.
I don't think it's enough for.
Now, meanwhile, somebody who's
White.
getting something is the
Okay.
underdog of the tournament, as Shelby Getz is currently, I thought he was up a pawn.
He is. You're right. 1, 2, 3.
No, it's 4 against 4.
Oh, excuse me. What am I?
Up a pawn when I checked earlier, but maybe not. Now, after HG4, because he won the pawn on G4, but White won the pawn back on C6. Okay,
Right.
because I was looking at like taking on D5 and then capturing on G4. So I thought he was going to win a pawn. But for some reason, he didn't like that line. Maybe there was just like a fast D6 or something like that. So he instead went for this, and now the pawns are equal.
Well, the pawns may be equal, but there's a big challenge in terms of the bishops. And I'm talking about the dark squared bishop, because Black's light square bishop very soon could be kicked off the board if you put a knight on F5, for example. Maybe not. It's actually, now that I look at the dynamics, I don't want to release your bishop from prison that's sitting on G2. So this would be a big thing in this game. Maybe King G7 wasn't the best move, considering that I would have wanted to activate my rooks as fast as possible, even potentially at the cost of a pawn. It seems like I could have just been active. Rook D8, rook to D2 seemed like a very sharp way to play to accentuate the bishop. In this position, King to G7, I can't say now that after a knight will land on F5, you're probably going to have to take that knight, and then the bishop on G2 gets more money than it's worth in this position.
Not easy to see exactly what Yerma should do himself.
He played B4.
B4. I really didn't think he had the time for
and
that.
now it's like Rook D8, just trying to play Rook D2. Yeah, like
exactly.
That was his point.
Well, I mean, if White's intention was to try to go queenside with something like B4 and A4 and B5, this bishop, to my eyes, is just simply dominating matters. And as White, I'm not even happy playing knight F5 and forcing a opposite color bishop trade. I think that Black is for choice in those types of positions. Shelby, however, against B4, he said, you know what? You have only one good piece. Let me trade it off. I'll play Rook C8. And undoubtedly, Shelby's idea is that if you play Rook C1, I'll trade. And this time, I'll grab the D file, and F2 will be unprotected. So it just feels like Shelby is continuing to nurse an advantage that he almost claimed right out of the opening.
I find it a bit strange, though, that he played Rook C8 with the opposite colored bishops that will come soon. You want to keep rooks on. The more rooks, the merrier. So this may be okay, but it feels like it's taken away some of his advantage, in my opinion, because unless he plans not to take on F5 and he has some way of dealing with that knight, but it feels like the knight's going to be too strong on F5. That trade's going to happen. It just no way that trade's not going to happen. So it seems like he should have kept the more pieces on, the merrier, even though he can argue for a little something here, but the weakness is only on F2, it feels like, in this position. Here I can play something like bishop back to A4, so I can put the bishop on the B3 square, and then you're only attacking this pawn. The king can move, I don't know. There's definite weakness, but how do you bring your king up with F7 hanging?
Well, no matter what it is, it's a 2-result game, right?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly.
Well, okay. I mean, step by step, right? I mean, that's already quite a nice start from Black's point of view. So, like, if I was Black, I'd play Rook B2, making sure to keep the bishop, let's say, inhibited. And I would start to reposition my king a little.
F7's hanging now. So unless you want to give that up, the bishop will land on E6.
Yeah, I'll trade the, doubled F pawn. That F pawn really was not a big factor. F7, I mean. And if I can put my king on F4 and I'll reset my rook, no, I'm not saying it's a win. No. Yeah. But I do say two results.
Yeah, I like the rooks on the board for sure. Just to keep the energy going. But
I think
maybe
the winning chances, that would have been preferable. But just from a psychological point of view, being outrated by every player by 400 rating points or 300 rating points, 200 to 300 rating points is really difficult psychologically, because if you lose your first game, you just have these nightmare scenarios going on your head. What if I lose a second, a third, a fourth? So it's really good for Shelby psychologically that he's gotten off to a better position with black with hardly any losing chances. I mean,
by
it's
the way,
rapid.
I really
Guys.
want to give him some kudos. Just let me give him a little love right here, because after the move b4, he played rook c8. b5 was Yermo's idea. That was why he played b4, anticipating that any rook trade, at least he'd get a pass pawn. And Shelby said, you know what? I should have played rook to d8 a moment ago. And I really do like the fact that I provoked your pawn to b4, from b4 to b5, because that means that you're not playing a4, a5 and disturbing my bishop.
My bishop is monstrous.
And that is really a nice little nuance. So, I mean,
I'm also worried about an attack on the white king. A move like rook to d3, threatening the possibility of taking on g3. And if you trade, you do open the g file, and the other rook might park itself over there. And you got to watch out for tactics even in that line as well. So there's some trickery, but we've got to shift to another game, and that is the game between Patrick Wolff and Gregory Kaidanov. There was a move that Patrick played on move 16. Gregory, by the way, has sacrificed a piece, but on move 16, this move, knight to d5, caught my attention right there. It's not often you see these knights, these four knights in the middle of we say call the four knights, various openings of the four knights, but the four knights like this, d4, c4, d5, d5, c5. And so the move e4 then happened. We go one more move, and this knight shifted over to b4. And you wouldn't guess that it was the f6 knight that migrated all the way to the other side of the board. So now you see this knight is being very active, trying to get its way. And Gregory played a couple of moves to just keep everything under control. He played bishop c3, and after queen b7, he played rook cd1, getting away from the four, queen a6, h4, h5. And then he said, it's time. Your chickens or the rats away or the cats away. I guess I'm trying to get my proverbs in place. Might as well play. Knight f5 lands on the board. What a move. Tactics, of course, is he hanging a piece? Is an e7 check. Patrick took it, capture on g7. King takes, queen check, king to f8, and now queen a6 check. And what does he have? Is there there's some mating variations?
If king e8, or because if king e8,
95 looks like
95
right?
Or
so 95, you're threatening mate. He can walk the gauntlet with king d8. I was wondering,
no, maybe 95 isn't it. Maybe e5 is it. No, but then you have d5.
Well, maybe something like this with the idea to go, you can undermine the structure of, e7 and d6 are great. But if I get to play f5, f6 now, or I've already got one pawn, I flushed your king into the center of the board where my rooks are ready to really make a very nice concerted attack. Now
don't forget, I can also play king g8, because king e8 is very aggressive. It's like what am I trying to say? That I'm not actually trying to win the game and avoid a perpetual. King g8, obviously you have a perpetual, but you want more. What do? Okay, so you play pawn takes f5.
Well,
d5 with the threat on the knight and the exchanging of queens. So that would force queen g5 check.
Exactly.
I would definitely.
It certainly would.
Well, let's count, people. Let's just count. There's only one pawn at the moment, so white has to be very careful. If king g8 takes, do you want the perpet? Rook d5 is not on top. Knight, no sacrifices look like they make any sense.
We see Patrick Wolff just looking a little bit nervous there. I kind of saw him. Uh, by the way, is it completely ridiculous? I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing. There, there is. I could beat Queen E2 check with Rook F2. Here, my dream was to be able to take and play Rook E1, and again, it was all about the king in the center of the board. But that's two pieces.
That's a lot of things to do for
That's
two
a lot of wood.
Yeah,
It's
a lot
wood.
of work ahead.
But there are threats, right? And this is exciting. This rook is attacking the queen. You do have 2 pawns for 2 knights. But
Patrick decided he didn't want any parts of that crazy position. He went and put his king back to G8 at least once to test his opponent. Do you want to draw? Do I have a draw in my pocket or not?
Right.
Because
exactly.
Queen G5. But again, is it no pawns at the moment? It's 0 pawns
at the moment.
At the moment for the piece, right?
Right. So I'm trying to set up the old familiar standby checkmating patterns. One idea was to, can I do it another way? Look at this. How about this? How about this as a crazy, the beautiful thing about commentating is if we don't like something, we can just take our move back. I mean, I get to sacrifice all of Gregory's pieces, and if I say, it didn't work, that's too bad. And no, I don't think this one's going to work either. I think that my checkmating patterns are
well, don't forget, a knight can go to E6 so easily that you
got something
like Rook B7,
okay, Gregory's going to have to work it out, but he's the one who sacrificed the piece.
Rook B7, Rook E5 in that position.
Okay, what was that? That was
played. Sorry,
I went here. What did I do? I went something like this. You went there. I went there. I went there. Rook E5. Now we're talking. There you go. That's a big stick.
That's actually a killer.
That's a blow. Yeah. That's
but
one of
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. This was also I love the spirit of it, but man, that really felt like a park hustle in those positions. Like, is this for real? You're sacking the whole army to get to this position?
What do they call them? The cafe, remember?
The
coffee house players.
Yeah.
Being compared to a coffee house player.
Yeah, so and you're not the one who is keen on sacrificing all the pieces, and we do see a practical decision occurring on the board. Yes.
And our first result that would be then of the senior championship, as the other games all look quite rich, except for that game between Christiansen that you mentioned earlier and Novikov. That seems more likely to end in a draw, but the others are very rich, including Joel's game against Shaba. That one, hardly any trades on the board, as is typical for the King's Indian attack. As the clock starts to tick down, I predict some fireworks in the time scramble.
Yeah, this game does have that feel. There are certain games that you just have a sense that are going to be decided by the time scramble. This has that about it. It just feels like both players are still kind of jockeying for position and feeling unsure about themselves. Yeah. I really like what Joel did. He got in this doubling on the C file early, so it really limited Shabalov's maneuvering ability. In the meanwhile, he's also, look at that, he's so clever.
Right. I mean, knight e4 is a real threat, Yaz.
Exactly.
F6 and H6.
Precisely. That's and he's trying to lure this move. He's trying to get this, and that's a real concession, because now Joel can reset and go after the G5 square, put his bishop on H3, and start to target this pawn on E6. In the meantime, it just feels like the queen side is frozen. Very important strategically for those in our audience who might feel that B5, B4, they would really be attracted to this move. Not so fast. This knight on A3 is actually kind of stymied. And by allowing knight c4, strategically, white is really, really happy with this outcome. So the move b5, b4, this looks like a great threatening move. In fact, it's got a big trap written on it, and it's not a move that Shabalov should play. 5 minutes to 3 minutes. We're going to have to keep our eye on this one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nice play by Joel, but who knows what'll happen when the clock starts ticking down. But yeah, meanwhile, let's check in on Getz, who was
doing
definitely
well
on top of things against Alex Marlinsky, our underdog, performing so well.
Exactly, and he did pick your pocket there, Maurice, for the move rook d3. You mentioned going after the knight, threatening rook takes g3. That provoked knight f5 check. Now here was a very key moment. Shelby took, and that's okay. But because knight e7 isn't forking a rook on c8, I think serious consideration had to be given for the move king g6 here, and just bring the king up the board and just let the knight live.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I was confused. I thought that there was a perpetual in the Gregory Patrick game, but now I'm seeing that actually it's still underway. And
he did the sack.
Greg has sacked another piece.
Oh, he did the sack. He's got the position. He went for it.
And did Patrick have to give up the rook? What was Patrick afraid of? He was afraid of.
Oh no, there's easy. I mean, queen g5 probably draws easily when you think about it, right? Because he can easily get in queen g5 and queen h6 if he feels like it in the worst case.
Well, yeah, as I was saying, if he thought it was just a draw, he wouldn't have sacrificed on d6. He must have thought he was lost in those lines.
Exactly.
Wait a second. Who wouldn't have sacrificed? Black wouldn't have sacrificed?
Well,
yeah, Black played queen d6 here.
Right. So what I'm saying is you have to play this move because white has all the options in that position. If you play queen moves, then queen g5 check. Okay, so you can play it like this. So queen g5 check, and in the worst case, white is drawing easily. And in a better case, he may be playing his rook to h6 like you did, Yaz, and say, well, are you sure you're alive? I mean, this is very, very dangerous to have to play. You're going to be walking the gauntlet. Larry Christiansen would be looking over at this board, saying, "Oh, maybe write my book again." As the rook can go to
second D2. Chapter.
Put me in, coach.
Put me in, coach. Rook can go to d2, knight can go to d3. You're right. The black king is exposed, but the problem I'm having is, after rook takes d6, queen takes, there's no question for me that the queen is outmatching the two knights versus the rook. The problem is I already have a couple of pawns in the pocket, but once I play this capture, the black king is basically toast. So yeah, there it goes. And I mean, this pawn on f6 is just, it's monstrous. And I think that Patrick went into a lost position. I feel this is a losing position for black.
But by the way, the game between Getz and Yermolinsky was a draw. So Yermolinsky saving what looked like a very dangerous pitch position, but really well played opening by Shelby Getz, who gets the monkey off of his back, drawing with black in the first round in a tournament where he's a big underdog.
Absolutely.
And had real chances to win the game too, by the way. It's very well done in that game. Target. I agree with you guys. The fact that this is the resultant position that Patrick gets versus the other position that it wasn't clear that the game was over.
Right.
This looks very, very bad. Very bad.
Too easy for white to play, right? Just
exactly
play for G4, G5, G6, or maybe.
Well, it's like one of those things that all white really needs is just some way of opening up the G file. Let me just play a move, and you play a bad move, and I play a move, and now you can see what I mean. The black king will just get flushed, but you don't have to play this way. Unfortunately, from Gregory's point of view, black can play rook to the 7th, rook a7 to h7, and just show his kicking prowess. Knight d5.
Rook e8, trade queen versus 3 pieces, a queen versus a rook and 2 knights. I've done a study of these types of material imbalances, and the key for the queen, the key for both sides is generally all about the passed pawns in the position.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the strong pawns? Of course, a king exposure matters, but where are the strong pawns? And white has that mass of pawns on the king side, and will try to make good use of that to hold black's pieces at bay. That knight on f8 will probably stay there for quite some time. So if it tries to get into the game, then there's going to be a lot of exposure to the king, and that h pawn could run down the board, or actually the g pawn as well. So that's a challenge. If those pieces could just get coordinated, though, then you'd have something going. But usually you'd rather have a bishop and a knight on the board than 2 knights. They don't do as good a job, especially with an exposed king. So that one is going to be very tough for Patrick, but there's still some technique that needs to be done. Novikov, Christiansen was a draw.
And meanwhile, the game between Joel and Shabalov does rage on as Shabalov.
Nothing's been traded in this game.
Just made the move rook d8, guys, and it's Joel's move. He's been thinking for 2 minutes.
A pair of pawns traded only?
And he's played knight d4. I mentioned
what was
knight g4 was a threat earlier because the knight f6 would have forked the rook. Now he can play knight f6. It doesn't win material, but it still lands a knight on a juicy square. And he's done it. Knight f6 check. What happens if king g7?
White's winning. What just happened? Of course, this knight on f6 is monstrous. You just play the move e4, e5, and just think about those Fischer attacks where you never, ever, ever, ever get a knight on f6, and you've just got complete domination here. Shaba has done something extraordinarily
Can
wrong.
we challenge the knight? I guess no. You
mean with you don't have a way to knight d4 to d5? You mean something like that?
Be careful not to allow. Bishop takes c6.
Bishop b7 looks. If you're not going to play b4, then your bishop doesn't belong on a6. So bishop b7 looks like something you have to do. Is there a knockout blow? How do you? The ace.
My queen to the dark square.
Actually, the a5 pawn is also hanging. I know you want to put your queen on h6, Jen. I was doing the same thing as well.
I know.
Instant
shift over, which is why I want to put the bishop on b7 so I can move my knight off of the e7 square and challenge your knight on f6. Maybe knight g8, for example, would be a proper way to do that. The key here, however, I'm going to push back a little bit. Yes, I think white is definitely better.
Please.
I mean, maybe even winning. But that knight on a3 does paint a bit of a poor picture.
The clock, 40 seconds to a minute. So this is
and maybe that's the main point. Maybe we're busy yapping about position, and it's really about the clock.
No,
somebody's going to blunder.
Give me a move. You're telling
bishop
me
b7
that
he wasn't just play bishop b7. 20 seconds left.
Bishop b7.
And he's played bishop b7. He's played Maurice's move.
Although I'm a little worried about something happening. C6. Rook c5 is another move.
Okay, I will just go bishop g5 personally and just say, I'm just killing because I've got knight d7 kind of ideas. After a trade, on c8. b5 is weak. My knight is actually useful. Thank you.
Rook c5, your queen d2 could come into play as well.
Yeah, that would, it was funny. I wanted to put my queen on d2, my bishop on c1, like you guys saying go to h6.
That's a cool line. Like if I play queen d2 and you play knight e5. Bishop
Joel has 19 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I'm sorry to jump in, but he had 19 seconds. And he just said, let me move my king.
He didn't know what to do.
That's the reality in this position. 16 seconds to 23 seconds. This is ridiculous. Wow. Look at this full-scale middle game with only a pair of pawns traded off, and they have to do it all in 21 seconds with 14 seconds. There's a blunder waiting to be played. There's no question. This is going to be about a blunder of some kind. And our queen
more likely for black because white's position is so juicy. It's easier to blunder for black, that's for sure. Shabalov up against it. Queen e4, 22 seconds for Joel.
Oh, that was the move I was wanting to do, because now no, isn't this guy hanging?
Knight f5 played, by the way, by Shaba, and queen
Oh my
f4.
gosh.
He got it into that square that Maurice and I were looking at.
So he could have
happened?
taken 2 pieces for the rook.
Wait,
With rook
did Alex lose on time? Or did he didn't resign after queen f4? But it says 1-0 for Joel. It says 1-0 for Joel.
Well, he would not have resigned.
No, he must have flagged, and the lead chess is not showing it yet. We'll find out, guys. Meanwhile, Goldin.
This is terrible.
Strange
yeah, by the way, Dmitry Dima was, I thought, winning a bishop of the same color ending. But now I'm not so sure. How am I going to get my king across the Rubicon and into Black's territory? I can play a4 one day, but
this is Dmitry Gurevich versus Alexander Goldin,
and that looks like Black will just ignore it, and he'll just move his bishop, oscillate his bishop between c8 and e8, keeping an eye over the h5 square. This looks like a draw. Patrick Wolff, Gregory Kaidanov. Let's go back to that.
That one's Kaidanov's mopping up.
That's over. There's too many pawns.
Well,
I said it was all about the past pawns.
You were right.
Man. Wow.
It was like 4 of them. Oh my goodness.
That's the last time you're going to say you were right in this broadcast, Yasser.
No. That's nice. Those pawns really made all the difference. And Patrick.
Well, I'm sorry to say, in this position, you could maybe remove all of White's pawns except the A pawn, and you might still be just winning on the spot.
Right, exactly. It went. Do we have other games going on? Because this went really fast. When we left it.
I think that's it. That's it, Yaz. This is our last game. Kaidanov mopping up with those quartet of pawns against a lone knight.
Wow, that's a lot of
Not
pawns.
The lone knight. There's a pawn too, but it's not going anywhere. Not fast enough.
Yeah, actually, this looks like a really very, very nice game by Gregory.
Yeah.
And,
well,
great game.
bad decision, as you pointed out, by Patrick not going for the draw. And here he's hoping for a trick, a hope that somehow his pawn can get to f1, but queen a1 looks like that's all she wrote.
Knight e3.
Knight e3, queen f6 check. Give me your pawn on f2, and you're done. So that's the easiest path probably to victory.
So look for this one to be over.
He's found another one, queen a6, same thing, stopping f1, but also having queen f6 in mind if he feels like it. If your knight moves, king is moved. One more move just to see.
These guys don't give up, you know.
Queen e2 check will make you give up. He'll stop the clock there. There'll be no hope after that.
Right.
Great victory by Gregory.
Very nice.
Yeah, really nice. So nice games.
Knight f5. Gregory Kaidanov sacking pieces.
Sweet.
And we got 2 winners right now. We got Gregory
2 victories.
And Joel Benjamin were the 2 victors, both with the white pieces. Both nice games. One game kind of abbreviated because
definitely
Joel was playing great, but it looks like it ended in the time scramble. Did we find out yet how that happened? We'll find out for you in the break for sure. But it seemed to me like he must have lost on time and it didn't register.
Yeah, unfortunate way for that to finish. The game of the round was definitely the game of Gregory's beating Patrick. The knight f5, go for it kind of move. That position was wild and woolly. Then he sacked again on d6. I mean, you've got a double knight sack in that position, guys. How often do you see that happen? Not a lot of times. And Gregory, by the way, as great a player as he has never won a U.S. national title.
No.
That's very strange. I mean, that just seems so weird given how many titles he's won over the years. Never won a U.S. national title. And I'm thinking he wants to score one. He's got to do it. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. Right now, in a good position starting off the first game.
That's remarkable, thinking of all the times he's been on our U.S. Olympic teams. I was sure he had won a national championship. I'm sure he's won countless, really, really top open events.
Absolutely.
But Here we go. Hey, our production.
Happy birthday, Kite.
Very
Always great to work with Kite, whether it is in St. Louis or virtually. And wow, look at that camera, guys.
That's some impressive looking camera.
Heavy.
Kite's technical wizardry always keeps us running smoothly. When something dramatic happened in the studio, something's going wrong, get Kite in here.
And it's always calm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
very skilled.
But you know, we still owe him, you know, a big, you know, I don't know, something, because we were having a staff party at the Kingside Diner and we did some karaoke. You, myself, and Ben Feingold did karaoke. Alejandro. And Kite started taking some video and he said, "Don't worry, guys, I'm not going to use it." And then he used it on us. So we owe Kite.
Went viral.
Yeah, it went viral. We got to do something with Kite. He's the guy. He was the guy that captured that. I thought it was Momo and the Supremes. What did he call it?
I think they call it Momo and the GMs. But
Momo and the GMs.
Alejandro doesn't want anybody to go look at that one. The dancing. We'll call it dancing that he was doing.
And we will have a break and we'll leave you with a little chat between the three of us, and we'll be back on the other side with round 2 of the Senior Chess Championships.
COVID-19 has obviously interrupted all of our lives. Some say maybe for the good, some say maybe for the bad. But one of the things that is really happening from the COVID is online learning and playing remotely. This online learning, Jennifer, are kids learning more or less, comprehending more or less?
Well, for chess, which I could speak to, I feel like it really depends on the kid. I interviewed Grandmaster Irina Crush for my podcast Ladies Night, and she talked about how strongly she believes that you need to also, in addition to looking at screens, you need to really make sure that you're using books and real chessboards, and that she has lots of young students, and she notices again and again that they plateau if they only study using screens. So I feel like the kids who are able to discipline themselves to create a mix of both would really excel in this time where they're able to, you know, be so efficient. But for some, it's very difficult. And it depends on your personality type. Like, chess players are lucky because a lot of us, definitely not you two, but me and many other chess players fall more on the introvert scale, I'd say. So they can cope with these terrible times a little bit more easily. But for kids who are more extroverted, this is just like really harrowing, not being able to meet your friends and, you know, see everybody more often and learn in between those moments. So it's complicated times, but on the positive, I think when it's all over, we'll take the good stuff from the online learning and then add back in all of the stuff that we're lacking from being able to see each other face to face.
It's a curious thing for me, as you mentioned, in terms of being more extroverted. I would say, thinking about my growing up years, part of the fun was going to the park in New York and meeting all those great people playing chess and being able to play with them and hang out and rap and talk about life. And that was part of the growing experience in chess. That was part of the fun of it, is why you wanted to do it. It's a bit more isolating to think of being in a room by yourself all the time. I did that too, by the way. I was reading books and I'm doing it by myself, but it was so that I could go back to the park and kick everybody's tail. Like, that was the fun part, is not just being stuck in the house all the time. So I can see that being a challenge for the fun part of it, being able to socialize. But of course, you do have almost unlimited access online, and it opens up a window that's completely different. You think about it, Yaz, you know, you're playing in Seattle, I'm playing in Brooklyn. Well, if you're in Seattle, we could play each other online, and it's a whole different kind of experience entirely.
Yeah, and for me, I must say that I've been more busy now during this pandemic than I have in years before. So one of the things that I've been doing, besides jumping in on various streams and doing commentary, is a Chessable learning chess course. Just teaching online with this really kind of cool platform, this learning platform called Chessable. And I think there's just so many tools that have become more and more available and taken for granted. And yet I just think that these are phenomenal tools that are going to make our kids and everybody's kids actually just a lot better chess players, Jen.
I agree, yes, because I understand like one of the main concepts behind Chessable is this idea of spaced repetition. And I just love the idea that kids are going to be taught, and grown-ups too, a lot of adults use this as well, that you're not bad or untalented at chess if you don't remember things quickly. That just means you're a human. And that you need to have a scientific way to remember things. And I'm sure you guys had your own systems. And, you know, Yasser has talked before about how he's blessed with a prodigious memory. But I personally had all sorts of systems, flashcards, you know, writing things down, writing them down on notebooks, also writing them down on the computer in my chess-based files. And like, I had these techniques that helped me memorize things, but now it's real science behind it. And I love that nobody needs to think they're dumb if they don't remember their opening variations for the 20th time. They just weren't going about remembering it correctly.
Well, I forgot how good my memory was. I mean, my memory used to be pretty good. But I also would like to add the possibilities for kids, especially being able to access the best players on the planet in camps. I did a cover story for the October Chess Life, November Chess Life, actually, that just came out. And it was on the young phenom, Abhimanyu Mishra, who is the youngest international master in U.S. history, and he's trying to become the youngest grandmaster in world history. And when he told me how many chess camps he took over the summer, he took one with Kramnik, Anand, Gelfand. He took it with Jacob Agard as well. I mean, he took with so many people. Ilyanov, he took it with. It's like, what? Week after week after week, camp after camp after camp. If you try to do that in person, you'd be flying all around the planet, meeting these guys in these diverse places. And all the kids have to do is wake up, brush their teeth, wash up, have breakfast, and bam, you have elite GMs right there in your living room.
It's beautiful, Maurice. And like my brother runs the U.S. chess school, and he's getting, you know, all the top players, Sam Shankland, you know, he's got Casa Corley, all these great role models for the kids to give these lessons. The St. Louis Chess Club is offering online programming. I think it's beautiful to see. And one other cool thing about it is that it also allows for adult education, for ongoing education. Irina Krush, Tatev Abrahamian, you know, a lot of grown-ups are telling me like, yeah, I get a chance to study with Kramnik. This is not normal. People who have regular jobs can take a few days vacation and suddenly work with Agard. It's great to think of chess as something that's not just for kids, but for anyone who wants to put the time and love into it.
Dominating his rivals, winning game after game. The opposition has never been as heated, as fierce. Most elite chess tournaments in the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our coverage of the 2020 U.S. Senior Championships. As we go into the second round, we have two victors. Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov's sacrificial victory against Patrick Wolff, while Joel Benjamin, indeed, we confirmed, won on time against Alexander Shabalov. The time scramble did decide it. Shabalov's position was in peril, but he flagged pretty early on before it became a true back and forth scramble, guys. And that could have proved dangerous as the event goes on, as these are very fast time controls. That base time of 5 seconds is not a lot. The funny thing about Shabalov is people think, well, he's such a great tactician. Doesn't that mean great blitz player? The answer is not always, right? Sometimes the great tacticians need time to calculate. And it's the great strategians who are the real blitz legends.
Well, I felt Shabalov never even got a chance to land a blow in that particular game. He just seemed way off in his game, and he didn't particularly handle the time control very well. But now, having said that, we have the pairings for round two, Jen.
That's right. And we've got some great matchups as always. We've got Gregory Kaidanov, our co-leader, playing against Dmitry Gurevich, good friend of his. And then we also have Joel Benjamin, black against Alexander Goldin. So Gregory starting off with his double white.
Yeah,
okay,
nice to get pairing number one. Yeah, that's pairing number one. I always liked drawing that number in these round robin events. As you just said, you get to start out with two whites and you get a black in the last round as the extra white you start with.
Well, your responsibility, of course, is to take care of those two whites. And if you can start off and the wind is at your sails,
right?
We'll see whether or not Joel, who is used to winning national titles, whether or not that will be the case. It's good to start off strong in these events. You don't want to be trying to play catch up. We saw in the junior event that just concluded, Sam Sevian started off poorly and came on with a bang at the end, 4 wins in a row to close out the tournament. You think somebody who does that must have won the tournament, tied for first? No, started off too poorly. Once he got in form, it was not enough. You want to be an early leader in chess tournaments. That's just the rule. Jeffrey, for example, was leading early, didn't work out for him in the end, but he was right there at the tie break. That's the kind of position you want to be in, starting off strong every single time.
Absolutely. Just looking at the pairings, and when a player starts with a loss, everybody just kind of turns and looks and say, well, how vulnerable are you? Larry Christiansen will have a double black as he'll be facing off against Patrick Wolff. But Patrick Wolff had that loss to Gregory Kaidanov, an inspired game, I would say, by Gregory Kaidanov. It's what cost Patrick the game. But when the sharks are swimming and they sense a little blood, let's see if Larry can do something in that game. And as for our tournament leader, Gregory Kaidanov, he's up against Dmitry Gurevich. I bet you these guys could write books on their games with one another. They played each other so many times. We see a very relaxed looking Gregory Kaidanov there.
Wasn't that odd, the contrast between the two of those players? Patrick was in a t-shirt. We didn't notice this or didn't remark on it. Patrick is in a t-shirt wherever he is. The heat is up. Gregory, and it looks like
in Frisco.
Is that the U.S. senior t-shirt? Because it says senior championships on it, but I can't.
Yeah, I think it is. It's snazzy.
That's the swag. Okay.
And I saw Larry Christiansen in the hoodie.
But Gregory's got the sweater on wherever he is. They didn't put the heat up in that place.
Kentucky.
Heavy sweater on. Doesn't matter where you are outside. I mean, what matters is the temperature you have inside, right? Who turned down the temperature control? As Gregory said, I got to put on something thick.
And look at that book, the books behind him, big bookcase, as Dmitry Gurevich looks like he's got some flowers and a nice little etching there behind him. The backgrounds of the grown-ups are different than the ones of the kids, because the kids are usually living at their parents' house, right? So it's not always chosen by that.
Gregory, I think, is in Lexington. Dimitri, I think, is in
Okay.
Chicago. Yeah, they're underway. Patrick Wolff, E4, and Larry opening up with the defending with the Perk defense. G6 and Bishop G7. An old favorite of mine.
Great.
D7, D6.
Definitely shows he's in a combative mood because the Perk defense leads to some very imbalanced battles.
Well, Bishop C4 is immediately, for me, one of the most contentious ways of playing as white, as immediately with his bishop on C4, white wants to play E4, E5, and E5, E6. And he immediately puts the pressure, I want to say, becomes a very forcing line of play. This particular variation.
Shelby, by the way, is decided he's taking his opponents off the beaten path every single game.
What? Say what?
A3 on move 1. Whatever your preparation was, you weren't ready for that.
No, you weren't. No,
Look at this, A3 on move 1. And Novikov said, well, I'm not going to put my bishop on B4, so what if I just fianchetto it? Yeah, A3, go figure.
Well, we would say seizing the defensive in Seattle. It's sort of like, okay, you play E5. So after A3, if you play E5 as black, then I can play E4, and you don't get to play the Ruy Lopez anymore, right? I mean, because the pawn is on A3. But okay, what can you say? I mean, you got to do something. And the players have reached...
That's a bold move to play.
The players have reached this position. Now, I would have been very reluctant to play the move C7, C5. The reason for my reluctance is that there are times when white wants to capture, when suddenly the move A2, A3 could prove itself useful, right? Because if you capture and you follow it up with a move B4, the pawn on A3 will be defending B4. But Igor said, nah, never mind. I'm going to play C5 anyway.
Usually, yes, that's when the bishop can go to B2. You get that extra move in, and then you put your bishop on B2. Not when your queen side might get vulnerable to an A5 kick. So he has to be mindful of that. I know exactly what you're talking about, though.
So if he takes it, what was, sorry, the A5?
For example, let's say I play knight D7 in this position. Knight B D7.
B8, D7. Okay.
So while you're puzzling out this position, guys, I have a trivia question for you. How many times has 1A3 been played?
Don't tell me 300.
In the database that Verusian has?
Yeah. Verusian,
okay. I'm going to say 1,000 times.
So Maurice says 300 and you say
No, I'm saying I wanted to say less than 300 because we just slap whoever played it. But it probably is a high number.
4,956.
Wow. That's 4,000. I wouldn't have guessed that. No, that's 5 times the number that I would have guessed. I was feeling I was a little high on 1,000. I thought Maurice might be very low at 300, but
no, I was making the joke. Remember earlier the
position
that was 300 times. I was just making that joke. But A3 on move 1, a lot of humor from players coming to the board, maybe drunk. And said, I got nothing prepared. I'm going to put A3 on the board. What the heck? A3 on move 1.
It's better than passing, right? Like you'd rather be white and play A3 than be black, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think the B3 square has been weakened that much for you to say A3 is that terrible a move.
Yeah.
No, it's a kind of a passing of the advantage. Another Alex versus Alex, Shaba versus Yermo. And these two players, when they get together, they're going to make something very interesting at the board. Well, interesting started on move 2. Shabalov, after e5, said, I don't want to see any of your Berlin defenses that you've been working on for the last month or two. No, no, no. I'm going to play the center counter and recapture with the queen. And after knight c6, I'm going to do something off the beaten track, queen c4. I suspect there's upwards of a few thousand games with the move queen e3. Queen c4 for me is new territory. Never been here before. G6, also very unexpected way of meeting White's setup. Knight c3, bishop g7, knight f3. And if Shabalov gets to play bishop g5 in castles, he will have a very comfortable opening advantage right out of the box, because bishop g5 castles, this queen might look temporarily misplaced, but don't forget, White got to develop for free. Like exactly at this moment, it's 2-0 in terms of the tempo count, right? And it's now 2-2. So if you get to go bishop with tempo in castles, you're going to lead in the edge. Knight g8, e7 on the board.
By the way, you said Alex versus Alex.
Yes.
And there's a story from yesterday, you're probably not following, Will Smith. No, not that Will Smith. The two baseball players, Will Smith of the Dodgers and Will Smith of the Braves. And Will Smith, the hitter, hit a home run against Will Smith, the pitcher, and the Dodgers topped the Braves. And everybody said, well, the real Will Smith did stand up in that one. In this event, we have 5 Alexes. I didn't pay attention at all. But we have Alexander Goldin, Alex Shabalov, Alex Yermolinsky. Oh no, I'm mistaken. I double counted.
Okay.
I saw so many on the screen. We only have 3 Alexes.
3 Alexes.
Yeah, my story was such a good story until it fell apart with the facts.
Oh, well, there we have an Igor Novikov, not an Alex Novikov, and a Dmitry Gurevich.
Yes.
By the way, we do have, again, I will be very curious if Varuzhin could help us and say how many times this position has come on the board, because we're in for an exciting battle here between the two Alexes, as I do see black castling short, that is to say castling kingside, white castling queenside, and I just love these positions where the kings are on opposite flanks, because it just makes for such compelling attacks by both players. This move d7, d6, it is encouraging knight d5. I will wait before playing a knight d5. Personally, I would like to see the move bishop e6 before playing knight d5. I want to make sure that I want to capture on d5 and fork some pieces. So we'll keep an eye on that one. We'll just go to the game. Also, Joel Benjamin leading after one game with Gregory Kaidanov. He's playing against Alexander Goldin. Joe Black. Let's see how this game open. Knight f3.
While you're doing that, Yasser, may I ask, do you guys have the game between Gregory and Dmitry on your board? And okay, we're hearing that there are some technical difficulties transpiring at the moment, so the game has not yet begun between Gregory and Dmitry.
Okay, I saw that as we were starting our broadcast for the second game, that the two players seemed to be conversing, and I was thinking, who's in the room with them that they're chit-chatting? And probably they were talking to each other. Probably they were having some difficulties.
Or to the arbiters, yeah.
Maybe to the arbiters, yeah. Okay, nothing to speak of right now between Joel and Alexander. So this is well-known territory. Let's just drop back to our game of Patrick Wolff and Larry Christiansen. That was the Perk defense, and that seemed to have some promise. When we left it, we had just seen the move Queen E2 as White is preparing to play E5, E6 in a hurry. Black plays c7, c6. And if the position looks like it might have come out of an Alekhine, yes, I think it's actually transpositional to some Alekhine opening positions. Bishop, and the knight came to d5 to stop the bishop from supporting the pawn coming to e6, h2, h3, preventing bishop g4, castles, castles, and the players have reached this position. Now, because I see this knight coming to d4, and I think of it as such a huge threat to play knight d4, knight takes c5, that my first inclination as black is to drop back and offer this kind of a trade. And that way I got rid of my problem bishop. So I would expect that. And Larry said, no, let me take a different approach. I'll play knight b6.
Yeah, the problem with backing up is white is not forced to trade. Bishop c4 is just an offer of a trade.
But why would you back up? Let's say, wouldn't you? I mean, this is a trade, I think, as white I would embrace unless there's an exchange sacrifice. But I would think that knight d4 is the move here, Maurice.
Yeah, that looks like an attractive move.
If I can get the bishop to back up, well, now the bishop feels a little bit more comfortable on b3. Now, having said that, maybe I should actually try knight c5. Maybe even this is a little bit more forcing. Because if the bishop does back up now, there's no c6, c5 in the position, and this feels comfortable for white. No, that didn't happen either. Can't guess the moves. Bishop did drop back to d3, and now Larry said, hey, I can exploit the moment to play knight.
Oh, there's a trick.
b4.
There's a trick.
What was the trick?
There's a discovery trick you have to watch out for. Your queen is hanging. So like knight f or knight c3.
Ah, thank you. Ah, boy, blindness. And yeah, the desired knight takes e6 is met by knight takes e2 check. Oops. Okay, that clears some cobwebs. Thank you for that, Maurice. Oh my. Okay, shame on me. So knight b6, nice move. Bishop d3 looks awkward. Knight b4, nice move by Larry. And it feels like Patrick has done something amiss with his opening. The bishop can't move yet again because of bishop c4. Oops. Rook d1 is not desired, but does Patrick have a better move than that? Maybe now he can play knight c5 or knight d4.
The point being that knight takes, you can still take on e6.
Yeah, take on e6.
Well, to this business.
Well, no, it's not.
No, there's a knight c1.
Right. Oops. That one I did see. And by the way, Patrick did play knight c5, so probably with the intention of simply recapturing with his knight on d3. But ooh,
make that his pawn.
Oh, no. And he did that.
Yeah. No. If I could get such a position as black, I'd be playing the Burke all day long. This is a dream French.
No, bishop d5, there's knight b7, right? So you're just back to c8, okay?
Think of a French defense, and now imagine a French defense fantasy, right? You get your knight on an anchored square, and you have a good French bishop, and your king is safe. It's like, you don't get those things in a French defense. Usually you got a problem, either a problem bishop, you've given up too much space, or your king is being attacked. Here, black's king is safe.
In this position, you're not worried about e6?
No, I'm not worried about e6 one little bit. You're missing your light squared bishop.
Yep.
So let's see how I could take advantage of that. I am looking at queen d5. Sometimes we have this problem that we have two pieces that both want the same square,
Right.
right? And it's like you got a knight that wants d5, you got a queen that wants d5. And I'm trying to think, which piece do I want to occupy the square first?
While you're
Let's
doing
try the
that,
queen. Yeah.
while you're doing that, would you just say that the game between Kaidanov and Gurevich did commence? They're on move 6 right now. Nothing much to look at. We'll just stay where we are. But they did resolve whatever issues
Very
were
good.
confronting them, and they're off to the races.
Very good. And we'll drop back with our game. We'll come back to our game with Patrick and Larry. And let's see, after e7, e6, I was thinking of the move queen d5, Maurice. The idea here, of course, I take up residence on a magnificent square in the center of the board. I attack this knight on c5 as well as this pawn. And I'm hoping that I get some position where I've got a sacrifice brewing against either h3 or on f3.
The 94
None of that
force there, and the weak d pawn seems like it'll be a factor. But he didn't play it. He played queen to c8, did Larry.
Yeah, none of this happened. Very surprising. Larry just played queen to c8, saying, okay, I'm willing to give up my beautiful light square bishop.
Larry's not one who likes to retreat pieces, by the way.
No.
Yeah.
No. Larry has one mode, and that's straightforward. There's this great story. I don't know. I'm an NFL football fan, and there was Campbell, a running back, Earl Campbell, and the guy was a cannonball. He just went forward, and he did these drills. And one of these drills was a 40-meter drill where you run backwards. And Earl Campbell failed the drill running backwards. He didn't do it very well. And the guy says, coach, well, I mean, maybe we shouldn't recruit Earl Campbell. And the coach said, believe me, Earl Campbell ain't running backwards. He went on to be one of the greatest runners in the NFL history. Larry Christiansen does not retreat. He doesn't run backwards.
Earl Campbell was one of those guys where 3 people would tackle him,
yes,
and it would take a 4th to actually bring him down. One on one leg, one on the other leg, one on his back, and you needed the other guy to hit him so that he actually went down. So no, he's not going backwards, and Larry is that kind of big Larry mentality. Go get him. Don't back any pieces up. By the way, we need to switch to an extraordinary position where Black is threatening big time. Is the game almost over in 12 moves? Shelby versus Igor Novikov. This A3 experiment. Don't try this at your next chess tournament. Those 4,000 games played, because it looks like.
Well, Queenside Castle's got him into a lot of trouble, because look at this battery on the B2 pawn.
Right.
Yes, and the F2 was hanging, and the knight may be hanging on E4, you would say, but you can have it if you like. You go ahead, bunch away, because take on B2 followed by bishop F5, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna leave a mark. I mean, look at the rook sweeping into the game at D8 and C8.
We got to try something like queen B3 or queen B5, but then we're just losing in exchange. I mean,
and a pawn. If we, as you say, Jen, just take a timeout and defend against the threat of B2, then we have to deal with the fact that we just lost a pawn and an exchange is being forked. Now back here, no, it's just way too. No, there's nothing. I had some crazy scheming dream of knight e5 and stuff, but no, I mean, even the queen defends g6, so this is just this is just,
over.
No.
Look at the pain on Getz's face while Novikov is kind of looking away, leaning back, relaxing. don't try no 8-3 on me. I am
No.
a grandmaster after all, and that this experiment has failed, including that castle's queenside. Very good point, Jen. C5 worked perfectly. He took on D5 after the knight went to E4, and he has just been fully punished for this play. 12 moves in. Pretty embarrassing to have played this kind of line and now realizing that you're going to just drop material.
Yeah. Once again, do kill me, and I do believe I am going to be killed. What is the most convincing here?
Well, I was just going to play bishop f5 to start.
Instantly, yeah.
I want to know what you do about c2.
Right. I didn't know if you wanted bishop c3 check as a start. Here, I'm just probably just getting absolutely mangled.
Well, I mean, you're at least giving me the piece back, right, in that line. So
yeah. Well, I'd be happy if I could survive to some kind of an ending or anything. I was looking for like the crispy cream, crispy clean knockout.
I hear you. You got maybe trying to defend. If we throw in bishop c3 check first, forcing king e2,
then your bishop f5 really looks like that could be it. Because I'm dreaming of getting my bishop to d3 before I have to play king e2. You know, like, and this I don't even get to play bishop e5.
No,
this feels
got to be over.
No, I'm not happy in any way. It looks like this is just a disaster. Let's just jump back to Shabby and Yermo for a moment, because
Shabby. I don't know if you just appreciate that nickname.
Oh, come on. Shabby.
His play is not shabby at all.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. I like his position. I like his position here, that bishop on h4, pinning the knight on e7.
But the problem is, no, that's a very good move. I wanted to say, how is this pawn sacrifice? Now we know Shabalov is not backing off of any pawn sacrifices when he can get his knight to f5.
The knight f5 could be even more than a pawn sac, right? Because you don't have that many places to go. If you play knight e7, knight d7, king d7, bishop e5 just wins a piece.
Yep.
So I take your terrible bishop, but
right.
So you'd have to play like c6.
Sorry, say that again, please.
Well, maybe you'd have to play like c6 here, but
to protect the knight,
or knight b6. Two moves possible.
Oh, knight b6, right? Knight b6.
That's a tempo. That's a tempo move. Yeah. So knight b6. Let's say always look at the most forcing lines first, and a move like knight b6 is plenty forcing, as it does come with a tempo. So are we happy about the pawn sacrifice?
We could go back. I think so. I mean, queen d4, is that a good move? Let's see. You play queen f6 here.
Yep,
I do.
Knight g7.
Queen
looks
g7.
Like you're holding on to everything here.
It's a pawn.
I've got my goodies.
Well, queen d4 maybe wasn't the best move. Is that the best move? Because I feel like maybe I had better.
Queen f6 is the next move. So we know, given that queen f6 is the next move, we need to be ready to play two moves after this one. We're going to take on g7 probably, and maybe h4. So whatever queen move that is, it's probably going to line up that way, unless you plan to keep your knight on that square, which I don't see how. When the queen lands on f6, where like queen e4 right now, because the problem is queen e4, queen f6. The threat is actual. It looks like there's some threat of moving the knight out the way and hitting b2. Man, White's king side is coming under fire in this round. We saw Getz's king side get hit. That is where the queen side castling. Now we're seeing Black try to do it here as well. It's a lot to think about.
Well, there's a reason why queenside castling is the exception, not the rule, because it keeps your king more vulnerable, right? You really need to play the move king b1.
But he's done it. He's done it. We're here.
We're here. He's got his king already on C1. We'll keep an eye on this. Let's just check in on the game of Joel Benjamin. Joel is sharing first at the moment with Gregory Kaidanov, thanks to their victories in round one. And Joel said, you know what? This is a rather tepid, boring position. Let me spice things up. He took on C4. And normally speaking, as you heard Maurice in the first broadcast of round one, normally you don't want to trade a central pawn like the d5 pawn for a wing pawn. So, I mean, this is definitely a strategic concession by Joel, but he did it for a very specific reason. He said, you know what? I actually think that this pawn is a target. Let me see if I can't win the pawn. Bishop e6. And, well, you didn't want to play c5 and maybe allow the knight to c4. So knight d2 was Alexander's choice, and queen d7. How do you like these apples, guys? This is different.
Cramped as black. I mean,
sorry,
I
I missed
feel a little
it.
cramped as black.
Right.
You know, I feel like that bishop on e6 is blocking my potential freeing moves. And so unless I can get more pressure on c4, I'm just not super happy. I think you're just building this formidable center, and I'm going to have to be on the defensive.
Okay, but having said that, to my mind, one of White's very, very best pieces is the bishop on g2. And he's lined himself up to be able to play bishop h3, force a trade, and potentially weaken White's king's defense.
True. So you're saying if e4, you'll just play bishop h3 immediately?
Sidestepping the...
And now e5, with the idea that if
I have to go back.
Time out to go backwards, and
right, like Earl Campbell.
Not knight e4. I mean,
Which
knight e4. I'm hanging my e5 pawn, huh?
Exactly,
yeah.
But you do have a knight c5, so you mightn't work.
Yeah, I get it that you're taking off one of my big pieces, but then I still have that space edge.
That's right. Yeah. You're definitely black is definitely in a cramped position, but Joel, just looking at the webcam, he seems kind of happy. I don't know if happy is the right word. He seems fairly okay with his position.
By the way,
yes,
Getz decided that he's going to give him an exchange, but he's going to do it on his terms, if you will. He played the move rook to d4 to deal with the threat on b2, saying, you want to give me your fianchetto bishop? Go ahead. And Novikov said, yeah, I actually do.
Yeah, that was a creative move, no question about it. Now, I guess he had to take it right away. I mean, there is the potential threat of rook b4 because, you know, with the pawn on h6 hanging, you'd almost like to play knight takes f2 and take the rook on d4 at your own sweet leisure, right? But he took it right away, took on f2, rook g1, and now h6 is hanging, but nobody
believe that black has enough compensation.
Nobody believes you.
No, we don't.
No. We're gonna have
high-class trickery in this position. Novikov only has 11 minutes left, but he just needs to figure out how to consolidate there. So a big winning chance for him, of course.
Yes.
Novikov will try to milk that position for all it's worth. And we did see the pawn sacrifice, by the way, by Shabalov. That is now reality. Although,
wait a minute, he didn't take it. He didn't take it.
Did he not? He decided not to take it. And he played the move c5. Talk about going from solid, give me the pawn, let's see what you've got, to, no, let's get wild.
Yeah.
c5 changes the whole structure. And this is Shabalov country. h4 on the board now, 2 bishops, but the unbalanced pawn structure, and c5 charging. Oh, we got a good one, guys.
Yeah.
Opposite side attacks. This is a good one.
Shaping up as a Donnybrook going on over here. Now, here's a key moment. What whenever you're white in such positions, you really want to play h4 takes g5, and you want your opponent to cooperate with you, and you want him to play, him or her, to play h6 takes g5 so you can have the open h file. Now, of course, in this moment, the move c5 attacks the knight, but this is the question. Can we sacrifice?
Gotta ask it. Bishop
Answer is
Bishop h8 looks terrible after h7 check. Your king goes up, and
now queen d4 threatening bishop e5.
Yeah, no, this is a dream come true. Black would have to play in this position bishop f6. That would be absolutely forced.
And now the issue is serious. You don't seem to be able to break through. The king will go to h8. Queen takes d4.
Well, you do have h7 and rook h6. So if you play...
The knight is going to move. The knight is going to move to f5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you're saying that you can meet Jennifer's idea of pressuring f6.
Well, actually, for starters, in that position, there is bishop g5 check.
Yeah.
So that would be problematic.
There is a reason why we tuck our king into the b1 square.
There sure is. So
rook takes d4, knight f5 nonetheless. Here I could conceivably check. Maybe it's a little bit too suspicious.
Yeah, that's
okay. It's a pity.
Ambitious and suspicious.
Have to sack, right? I mean,
no.
You could also have a good position without sacking, like just move our knight, and then we're threatening, takes on g5 with similar positions, except we're not down a piece. And by the way,
Shabalov doesn't have that character, though. Shabalov doesn't like when you start pushing his pieces around. Even knight b5 or rook b8 action might happen. No,
he did make a move, guys. He played bishop e5.
He played bishop takes e5. This is much more concrete, if you will. I have to say I'm quite surprised by it, but he does take the bishop off of that square where that knight f5 threat was going to happen before. But given that bishop takes e5 is so real, and it's been played.
Knight f3.
And so you're saying that a check is just a one mover. I play king b1, and then I'm turning g3, and you have no stability with that bishop.
Well, it's not that I'm threatening g3. This, for me, Jen, is like I'm saying, fantastic. When your bishop was on g7, you were scaring me. you were really, really scaring me. You put your bishop on f4. Not only are you not scaring me, I'm saying your bishop's misplaced. It so happens that, yeah, you're right. I get to play g3, but I'm right back to getting to play h4 takes g5, and I think the bishop is misplaced. So this move, bishop e5, by the way, I mean, you have to, yes, exactly. It's like, we are trained not to voluntarily give up our bishops for the knights. Like, our opponent should press us.
I often say on the show, bishop takes knight is the most important move, most important exchange in Grandmaster chess. And it's because it's usually counterintuitive, as you say. Because no, it's a bishop. Why are you giving up a bishop for a knight when the bishop looks like you're going to have this nice long diagonal? But man, the control of the opposite color squares becomes a factor. And here, the light squares, white can start thinking about attacking on the light squares quickly. Open the file, put a bishop on d3, put a queen on e4, and whoa. Hey, where's he going?
Exactly. He's going to h7, knight f3, and we are not seeing a very, very satisfied Yermo because he knows his position is really not good. Like bad.
Suspicious as ever.
Bad. This is not.
I love that move, bishop takes e5. What a great move. And Shabalov is leaning back. Let's get the body language. He's leaning back saying, what more could I ask for out of the opening? I've got the pawn on h4. I'm threatening knight e5. His light squares are weak. His king is bad. My king is going to find a move c3 at some point and blunt the attack along the long diagonal. You're not going to have anything there. This is sweet.
Yeah, not only that, everything you said, sign me up for. The bishop, in some ways, could also go to b3. Bobby Fischer loved to put his bishop on a c4 in a Sicilian and put it on b3 so that his king was extra protected. And this just looks like Shabalov is going to have a lot of fun. Let's go to the game between Goldin and Joel Benjamin. When we left it, Jen, you were a little bit skeptical about about Joel's approach, and you were afraid that you were going to get cramped as black.
Gosh, yeah, indeed. And we were looking at the movie for Bishop H3, but different attack by Goldin, a different approach. He just started pushing his A pawn forward to,
right,
highlight the fact that the knight on B6 is a little misplaced, and maybe he'll play for A6 or
right,
knight to C5.
right.
Obviously I can't do it in one move. Either
Yeah.
maybe via E4 or A4.
Right. So the thing is, in this position, black, Joel is threatening to capture this pawn on D4. If you pause for a move like E2, E3, then you may have to deal with bishop H3. And if you defend the pawn on D4 with this move knight to A4, the nice part about that move is you are threatening to land on C5 with a big, big tempo. And if that were to provoke a move like B6, then I would say, okay, I kind of feel like white got in a pretty nice strategical advantage of a big center versus, a queenside pawn that may not be meaningful as the E4 pawn. I think if white can play E4, D5, he's going to have a very big advantage here. So Joel might be in a little bit of trouble. By the way, E2, E3 was played. Alexander Goldin said, if you want to trade bishops, you're welcome to it. And I would probably trade bishops right away. You were mentioning, Jen, the problem with the space cramp that black didn't have active moves. Once you get rid of this bishop, you will be angling for E7, E5 type of moves and counterplay.
Hey, you want to talk about bold play?
Yes.
From laying on your back. The game between FM Shelby Getz, the big underdog in this event. We're just kind of counting this one out. But take a look at this position. Starting from rook to G1, if we go back to that moment where black is just cruising, it looks like. Bishop E6, queen E5, knight G4. Get your queen out of there. Queen had to grovel, it looked like, back to the E1 square. But that pesky pawn hanging on H6 prompted the move G5. And now the bishop had to drop back. So it just looks like all your pieces are going backwards. He plays bishop F5, going forward. And Shelby said, I'm taking the pawn on E7.
Good man.
Open up a line, whatever. You get the open file for your rook. Or play bishop C3, rook F8, and now queen B4. He has a pawn for the exchange. The bishop on C3 is his only hope to say he has something for it. But it's bad. It's bad, definitely. But doesn't it feel like he was getting mated somehow?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. This is
over.
a big success.
We weren't even to look at this game.
No. We were going to suggest, avert your eyes. This could get really ugly. I think white is kicking here. I mean, yes, of course, you have a material advantage and you have some initiative. But if you don't put white out of his misery and you let him play just a few consolidating moves, those are some good pawns. That's 4 versus 2.
Yes,
something could go wrong.
And look at the clock. It's
10 minutes to 4
10 minutes to 4 minutes. Novikov not having that same kind of relaxed glances that he was doing before. He looks a bit more concerned. And he's now played a quiet move, A6. That's a move that says, I just need to make a move. I need to hurry up, make a move. It's a useful one. But I don't think this is the knockout blow that he wanted at all. No. And this could get strange. It's a bishop and a pawn for a rook.
Well, if it's a bishop and a pawn already, well, now I'm starting to think, well, let me just play bishop and pawn versus exchange. I'm hoping that you can't take this pawn. Maybe you can. Maybe that's
maybe you can.
I
Yes.
think maybe
You're not getting anything back. We're not
getting
anybody.
Okay.
We don't have to.
In that case, it's king d2 and bishop d3 to the rescue. And again, a bishop and a pawn, not complete compensation, but
knight e3, and then you still have bishop d3.
That was the intent. Now you can play knight check, but okay, I'll take it and I'll plant a knight on e5.
Oh no! The opposite color bishop ending starts to become work. That one's not fun to play at all. You want to keep
not
the
what
knight
you
on.
intended.
So some chances. But
Absolutely.
We'll
get back to that.
Let's take a look at Patrick Wolff and Larry Christiansen. When we left it, I kind of liked what Larry was doing. Rookie one, knight d5. Okay. Knight takes. And yeah, okay. Some strange moves going on.
Looks like they want to trade places. You mentioned it before. The queen and the knight want to trade places. The queen go to d5 and the knight go to e6.
Right. You know, like everybody wants to use a square. In the game of Joel Benjamin, I was mentioning bishop h3. It's a way to trade off the fianchetto bishop. When there's not a rook on f8 or a rook on f1, bishop h6 can be met by bishop h8, and it's a strategy I've used a lot in my tournament practice. But Gregory Kaidanov has argued that this is like one of the most overrated strategies by Black. You preserve the bishop, but Gregory will argue that the bishop on h6 is actually much more powerful than the bishop on h8. We'll see how this works out for Larry. Bishop h6, bishop h8, queen f4, queen d5. Finally, I love this queen on d5. I think that's a great spot for the queen. The knight wants to come to f6. And Patrick Wolff said, no, I don't want the knight to come to e6. It will be very good there.
No, why wasn't e6 good here? C8. Oh, if e6, you could have played f6, I guess. So I thought rook ac8, we could play e6. And that was why rook c8 was played, okay, to overprotect that knight, because knight g5 does carry that threat of e6. Knight e6, queen f7 mate. And there goes that bishop on h6, so helpful all of a sudden.
Exactly.
I want to move my pawn to e6. And if pawn takes, same thing.
Exactly. So that was why Larry played rook c8. But you kind of feel that this is a little bit artificial on Larry's part, and you're going to be obligated to play f7, f6.
So if e6,
that's what he did.
Play f6.
Yeah. Exactly. E6 would have. Sorry, Jen, you're right.
E6, f6, and then knight f7 would just allow knight takes e6.
Exactly. Oops. That's a tempo. And
not a pawn we wanted to lose.
No. That was why rook e3, f6 on the board. And here, I've got to say, I'm liking white. I'm thinking that this bishop is really, really powerful thanks to the fact that this pawn is on g6 and not back on g7. So I'm seeing some dark squared weaknesses. The knight is very good, no question about it, pretty as a picture, but it's actually doing more defensive work than offensive, and I'm seeing h5 on Patrick's agenda. So I think white is for choice.
Well, talk about white is for choice. The game with Shabalov and Yermo said, I don't want to see any parts of this attack. And he played a pawn sacrifice, trying to bail out maybe into an endgame. He put his bishop back on g7 after the move, knight back to f3. And Shabalov said, I'm taking that pawn. And after queen b6, said, let's go into an endgame. Queen to b3. I'm willing to just shut it all down. And after g5, knight g5, d5. And we all know these checkmates. H7 looks tenderoni. Is there a trick in there? But it looks like there's no chance to get in with any kind of weird sacrifices, rook h8 or something wild. No, that's not going to be anything there. And queen to h3 doesn't look like it quite does it after the first check on b2. and followed by another check on c3. So is that the case? What is queen h3 here? Take king up.
Guess we go
And
check.
there's this check. And where's your next check?
Or queen f4, or maybe queen d4 was another option.
Queen d4 allows bishop d3, and
yeah,
and then you could play queen f4. Yeah, but still it's mate. It's still mate.
Right.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I wanted to try to provoke White's king to step in front of the bishop, and I will just sidestep
because there's no mate.
The checkmate, and then I got to discover check.
That's the clean refutation there because there's no mate.
But okay, back where we are currently after d5, it just feels like there's got to be something really compelling for White. If there's nothing really, really, really compelling, then something like c2, c3, just preparing to drop back with the queen and threaten mate. I kind of like that for White. By the way, I mean, he is a pawn to the good. Queen takes b6. Okay, if I'm in Yermo's shoes, I'm kind of breathing a little sigh of relief, right? I was thinking that Black's king was a little bit more vulnerable, and after AB, I do get to recapture with the tempo, and my pawn structure, well, it's a little nicer than it was just a half ply ago.
By the way, let's take a look at the clock times as well. Shaba has 540 and Yermo has 147. You don't want to be the one defending this position down a pawn. In all practical purposes, this is a 2-result game no matter what, and it's going to start to look like a 1-result game as c3 gets played, locking out that bishop. The pawn on d5 must continually be defended by this knight on e7. So the knight on g5 could reroute itself to the f4 square, knight h3, knight f4 in time, and really pummel at your pawn as the bishop lands on the diagonal as well, maybe bishop to f3. White has to be careful you don't get to play d4 too fast. He's trying to get b4 in to get some life as well. So definitely looking for play. But Yermo has to giddy up. I mean, really giddy up. Here's g3 with the idea of bishop to g2 is what we were talking about.
Right. Now, that, can I just like
investigate? I would play, I wouldn't investigate. I just,
I mean, this is getting a little, this is getting a little bit, wait a minute. This wasn't the clean pawn up, let me win a comfortable ending that I was hoping for a moment ago. I'm not sure that move G3.
That 1 minute is alarming.
Yes. But I was really surprised.
Pressure on all of the games, guys, and we have an echo of last game in that Goldin's game against Joel Benjamin. Still so few trades.
One bishop, one pawn.
We did get to trade that light squared bishop, which was super useful because the bishop on e6 was really cramping our active play. But it's another blitz game, guys. 2 minutes to 3 minutes with almost every piece and pawn still on the board. It's going to get wild.
Yeah.
Oh no! Something insane happened in the game with Getz.
Oh no!
Wow! No. He was trying to defend so tenaciously, and he hung mate in 1.
Oh
mate
no!
On the board. First of all, a6. He decided to open up the diagonal after a6 with d5. Why would you do that? Bishop e4, d6, rook e8. There goes your pawn. Knight e3. b5 just flailing, it looks like. Rook takes ba6 and mate.
He just blind spot.
A number of poor moves with plenty of time on the clock. I mean, he did not defend tenaciously.
He did not.
Our first mate on the board, guys, but will it be our last? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
By the way, Goldin, Kaidanov's game against Dmitry Gurevich, not the most exciting game. It is with one of our co-leaders. They got off to a late start, so there's more time on that clock than others. So that's why we're not spending as much time on it at the moment. It looks like an even game, 5 versus 5 with all the majors on.
Exactly.
So we'll come back to that. after.
Okay, Joe Benjamin, super exciting. Shabalov's game looked like it was about to blow up after the move b5. We were anticipating b4, rook b8. That was not the direction that Yerma went in. He played d4.
What a move. What a dramatic move in a situation like this one. And he's not getting his pawn back because the problem
It's
after
two
knight
pawns,
f3
isn't it?
is right. Well, at least one back is what I meant.
Yeah,
to
he's
say.
not getting him back.
He's not even getting one back because this move knight f3, the rook can go to h5 and attack all the way across the rank. And Shabalov now simply up 2 pawns and saying, you're saying you have real compensation. And it looks like Alex, I should say Yermo, is flailing right now, trying to get a knight on d3 to argue the bishop doesn't really belong on g2 after that last move. But you get the feeling this must be lost.
Yeah, rook h5 and rook takes b5, as you say, just coming across the board. Looks like Shabalov in the driver's seat there. Joel Benjamin's game, like his first round game, looks like it's coming to a blitz finish as Goldin is down, what did you say, 2 minutes? 1 minute to 2 minutes.
Goldin's
And
up.
Goldin's
up.
Goldin's
2
up.
minutes.
Goldin's up.
Excuse me.
Echoes
Okay.
of the game for Shaba, guys, as we had the same setup, but then it was Shaba who ended up losing on time. In this case,
Joel showing some lack of form because
It's
2
a-
games in a row with no time on the clock in the middle game.
Yeah, but now he just put his queen on g5. You would have thought that he would want to put his queen on h6 so he could play for g5 and g4. The queen on d3 was a little bit exposed to the move e7, e5. Goldin dropped his queen back to the e2 square, queen e2, and Joel, he can't sit here for 30 seconds like
He's got
just
37
done.
left. He's got 37. You bet he can't sit for 30. I mean, I guess theoretically he could, but now he's going under 30 seconds. He's at 26 and counting.
Come on, Joe. You could play knight h5 in the New York instant here. H5. Wow. He spent nearly 2/3 of his time on h5. He's thinking too much. It goes to show just what I was we were saying about the time control at the start of the broadcast. 25 minutes and 5 seconds is not a common time control for these players. When they play online, they play blitz chess. When they play in person, they play classical chess. So this is not a common time control. And knight e4, that looks like a very good move as Goldin's about to play e4, e5 to cut this bishop.
Shaba did win his game. Knight b4 was actually met by knight to e5, and Yermo said, "I don't want to bother myself with this position. It's 2 pawns. It's not enough compensation." Surprisingly, did he resign or did he lose on time after this move? Because he was he had 35 seconds left on his clock still. So it looks like he just said 2 pawns. No, please, enough respect for this guy. It's too much.
2 pawns and dissatisfaction.
knight e4, okay. So knight e4, obviously.
Joel's idea after queen f3, kick the knight back. If you play queen f5, I was thinking, you know me, give me that pawn. Give me that pawn.
Queen f3, king f3, knight g5 check.
Give me that knight.
Guys, we need a second board because Patrick and Larry are also in the Donnybrook. I mean, this one's wild. There's a rook. Put it on the analysis board while we leave this one on the left. We've got to pay attention to both at the same time. The one on the right is Wolff versus Christiansen. There's a rook on e7, a queen on d1. Is d3 actually hanging? But the rook is going to gobble everything on the 7th. I mean, these 2 positions are wild with so little time left on the clock. And he played rook takes d3. What a move with your king looking like it might die to some kind of check.
I know, but the problem is the desirable check and queen takes b7. Keep in mind the knight is attacking the rook, and now you got to play rook e8, and that trade of rooks is a big relief for Larry. I think he was fearful of his king simply getting checkmated. Now with the bishop pinned,
He's much better off.
Look
Look,
at that.
Alex Goldin only with 8 seconds.
7,
8 seconds.
6 seconds, 11 for Joel.
Whoa.
Knight D3.
And
retreated.
7.
Couldn't he have sacrificed?
Oh,
my
he
gosh.
blundered the E5 pawn. Did Alexander Goldin? He had this very nice pawn on E5, and Joel just took it thanks to.
And
a
Joel's
rook
not
E2.
hiding his emotions, guys. He looks happy right now as he's
Oh,
sunk his face
yes.
to F5.
Well, he's like the Cheshire cat that just got the cream.
He
That
was in a
a
miserable
huge.
position, and now he's lashing out. E5, look at that. Suddenly, all of his pieces that were imprisoned. Remember that the bishop was on
Yes.
E6, the queen was on D7. We had no play. Suddenly, he has all the
sorry.
play.
I'm sorry, but Joe Benjamin is
look at
channeling
this.
Walter Brown right now.
Look at
I mean,
this.
look at Walter Brown, Alexander Ivanov, these guys who get in serious time pressure and start playing genius
There it is.
moves.
2-0.
Unbelievable.
2-0. And look at-
Unbelievable. And look at him holding his heart.
Joel sitting there saying, "What am I doing to myself? I'm giving myself heart palpitations."
He's getting
with this.
like 15 seconds with his opponent having 2 minutes in both times. They go underneath him in time, and Joel ends up the victor with those strong nerves. Well, let's take a look at Patrick Wolff versus Christiansen.
I think Larry has done very well to get himself into a position where his knight is the one defending his king. And these knights are like, really wonderful in terms of being able to do that. Now, having said that, he does have to worry about, the queen is guarding the knight. It's not like the king is guarding the knight because the king can get driven away. So Larry is in a little bit of a pickle. Maybe it's time to just step back with the king. No, he didn't feel he had to. Okay, that is a bold move. I think bishop f6 is on Patrick's agenda.
King h3 played.
He didn't want to allow queen d2 check. So, and Larry's basically saying, I'm not worried. Wow.
Larry does not think about, like, if he doesn't see mate, he doesn't care about you. And now he sees a king that's exposed, and here he comes. Check. Do something with it.
Check. And Larry's, if you go with your bishop to f6, okay. I was about to say, if you go with your bishop to f6, Larry had a check on d2.
Forcing the king to leave, even though it looked positive, but Larry's just harassing that white king.
And what happens if we step back? King h3, now careful. I was about, whoa. My spidey sense is tingling. What's wrong with grabbing a pawn, Jen? Nothing, said Patrick. I'll take that pawn. That'll be one.
Well, it does slightly expose the king to light squared checks. King g2 can be met by queen e4, maybe.
Okay.
He is down. He played g4 instead. G4 even more bold, allowing knight f4 check.
I don't like that.
Larry didn't need to be told to play that move.
King h4. Look at that king.
But king g3. You got no more checks. And Larry said, I have no more checks. Okay, there was also the possibility of queen h5. Patrick said, okay, now the king can make the king could make a rush to the center because, again, queen h5. This looks like Larry's going down. He's dropped.
I don't know. Yes, it's true, but boy, knights can be tricky if somehow you can get it over there. Unfortunately, the knight is pinned.
Otherwise, 97 would be very sweet.
No, the king has made it out of all of the checking zone. And furthermore, the king has turned into an enormous attacking piece.
A dynamo.
Absolutely.
Going after the queen.
What's this? That looks like a bluff.
It's some kind of stalemate, Hope?
There's no stalemate.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. The queen is coming to h5. The knight is hanging. I think Larry is in.
He's run out of moves. He's run out of fuel for his checks. Down 2 pawns. Any queen trade now is dead loss instantly. That one's over.
Yeah, and Larry looks like he's given it a rest.
And there, Patrick Wolff, a win and a loss. He enters the tournament with a tumultuous beginnings. We have one game left. This game did get a late start, guys. Kaidanov,
Between-
Gurevich.
Guys, we've seen 4 wins so far.
That's whoa.
4 wins this round.
4
This
wins
might
this
be the-
round?
This
Wow.
round. Am I
Oh.
mistaken? Patrick won, Novikov won, Shabalov won, Benjamin won.
That's right. And this is
That's
going to be a
four.
full draw, most likely, as there's a trade-off now. Rook A5, Rook B3, and we've many times called draws in positions that ended up blowing up. But guys, this ain't going to be one of them.
No.
This is not going to be one of them. I think it's pretty safe to say we're on solid ground by saying that this game is about to be agreed drawn. These two warriors looking at each other saying,
Okay, who's going to offer the draw? Who knows how to
Who's
offer a draw on leeches?
that's the point. Do you know how to offer a draw on leeches? We're about to find out. By the
What a
way, we do
round.
have plenty of time. 4 decisive games. Wow.
With a mate in one of them as well.
With a mate.
And there it
So
is.
a lot of
Oh,
action
wait.
in this one.
Well, I was about to say, if I was in Larry's shoes, I would feel very disappointed with the outcome of this game. I think he had a wonderful position against Patrick. I think he was simply better, in fact. And then it was like Patrick was the one that was landing all the good shots, and Larry was on the back foot. And it is finally, Dima seems to be talking
They have
to
agreed to a
somebody.
draw.
No, the draw is
Okay.
done. The draw is in the books.
Okay. I think they have a second electronic device that they can talk to Chris Bird, the arbiter, directly from. That's what I think we just saw there with Dima. I think he was trying to offer a draw.
I agree. Yeah, I think he wanted to make sure that he was pressing the right button to offer a draw and not accidentally resigning.
Oops. Oops. Yeah, that could hurt. That could hurt. Well,
I feel like there's some age-itis in that one, Jen. Ageism, if you will, I should
no,
say.
because it was just because they looked like they were looking around and talking. That's why.
Yeah.
And also,
yeah.
if you don't play on lead chess before, there's a couple confusing things about it, actually. I mean, the pre-moves, like everything's a little different. Depends what your dominant site is. But, a lot of people play on lead chess, but a lot of people play on chess.com. So if you switch over to the other one, everything's a little different.
I'm teasing, of course. I was teasing.
Mhm.
But we did have a round of amazing fireworks, pyrotechnics, 4 wins. Of course, 4 losses. You see a lot of ones, a lot of zeros. And Joe Benjamin, 2 insane time scrambles that he's managed to emerge from victorious to be sitting at the top 2-0. Who's betting on Joel to win it all?
Well, a lot of people. Hey, can't argue with the score. But I think he's got to, shift his strategy, because I don't know if anyone's nerves, certainly not his friends and family, can take it if he does that 7 more games in a row.
True that. I hate being a second to time trouble addicts, and Joel getting into time trouble back to back. No.
But
not
his
good.
opponents lost on time both games.
Right.
He did kind of confuse them at some point, because then the problem is he's in the zone of playing quickly and his opponent isn't, and suddenly they just have this false sense of security and lose on time. To be fair, he was way better in both games when he ended up winning on time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the finish, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
at the end. So he outplayed his opponents in time pressure, which is something in this time control that deserves kudos.
Yeah, so you say it all the
Absolutely.
time. You mentioned Walter Brown as one of those time pressure addicts who turn into
Right.
monsters when there's very few seconds left on the clock. Joel has a little bit of that in him as well.
Victor Korchnoi was also not only a time trouble addict, but when he was in time trouble, he turned around games in the most amazing way. It was sort of like people thought, okay, now that my opponent is in time trouble, I'm going to play some good moves and win on the clock. They didn't realize that that was their most vibrant state that they were in, and that Walter Brown was simply a great great blitz player. And he could hustle you right out of any kind of position. And it seemed to me that, Joel got in a little New York shuffle, a New York hustle there. And
Brooklyn, Joel's from Brooklyn.
In the house. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to see you on the other side for the third and final round of today's start of the Senior Championships.
What does it feel like playing for this U.S. title online? And what do you think some of the challenges will be?
It is going to be a big challenge for me because I don't play online at all. I actually started some training. I found, somebody was willing to play me in a training match, but it is going kind of rough for me.
I don't know. It's weird. No, it's of course it's unfortunate that we all have to now play online. But that's fantastic that that you guys are organizing the same event, the same prize fund, because now this all open tournaments online, they run with reduced prices, like 5-10 times. So and you guys just keep the prices. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely shocking that first of all we have to do this. Okay, we kind of accepted that there's going to be no tournament this year. So kudos to St. Louis Chess Club. That's fantastic on their part.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be invited. I'm very happy the tournament they actually want to hold it. I understand that these tournaments are online. For me, it's not easy because I am an old-fashioned and old guy. I'm the second oldest in the tournament, and it's kind of technical difficulties for me.
It's very strange, and I have not been playing online during this COVID time. I don't particularly like playing online in normal times. I don't do a lot of practice online. It feels very weird that we have to have so many precautions to make sure that everything is on the level. I don't think for a millisecond that anybody in this tournament would cheat anyway, but it's just going to be weird. Your concerns are split between playing a good game and making sure that you don't commit a technical violation.
Weird. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm really, really excited because the break was for so long, and despite the fact that the time control is not ideal, it's much better than Blitz, which I'm already, fed up with.
I don't know. It's going to be different. I mean, I haven't played a serious game of chess in a very long time. I'm just hoping I don't embarrass myself. I'm looking forward to the challenge of it. But the fact that it's online basically makes it possible for me to play. There's no way I could not have taken like 2 weeks out to fly to St. Louis and play one game a day and so on and so forth. But when I saw that it was online and I could do it from home in 3 days, I thought, all right, I'll take the time, see if I can get myself in some sort of shape and play. So I'm excited about it.
I don't know. I have never played online actually, and I don't know how it will go. I have no idea.
It'll be a challenge, technically, and you have to be careful about where you put your eyes and all that stuff. But I'm used to playing online. But it will be. I'll try to do some practice games. I'll be ready.
It's definitely a privilege. I never would have expected the opportunity to emerge, especially looking at the field of the Goldin players who used to dominate U.S. chess from 3-4 decades ago.
I'm preparing. I'm looking forward. This is the best thing chess-wise which would happen to me, in a long time.
We are back at the 2020 U.S. Senior Championship with a clear leader, 2 victories, 2 time scrambles, 2 flags fallen as Grandmaster Joel Benjamin is at the top with 2 points. Gregory Kaidanov and Igor Novikov with 1.5 points from 2 games. And Shabalov and Wolff both bouncing back from round 1 losses.
And Dmitry Gurevich is playing a solid tournament at 50%. Beautiful sentiments being expressed there by the players in those interviews, Maurice. I really got the sense that the players are very, very pleased with the tournament, very grateful to the St. Louis Chess Club and the Sinkfields, and anxious to do battle.
Yes, indeed. And that's such a good point. The fact that all these events are being honored in such a wonderful way as we see the pairings there, some critical pairings certainly going into the next round. Joel Benjamin with 2 points at the top playing against Gregory Kaidanov, who started off well at 1.5. That's got to be the key battle of the round. We'll see some other good matchups as well. But it's so important to honor the country's national championships and to have 5 of them this month. As Jen said earlier, the championship October, have 5 of them in 1 month. Extraordinary. And every one of them just getting better and better as we go along. And this one, the players are indeed honored to be able to still represent their country and battle for their country's title and know that they're being watched, they're commentated on, they're going to be paid for it as well, despite the fact that they're on the tail end, the twilight years in their careers.
Although, I mean, 50 is pretty young for a senior, but I love it. I think it's a great breaking point for the age limit, even though, of course, technically, legally, it's not really a senior, and many 50-year-olds are in fantastic shape. But it's great for chess because chess is becoming such a young person's game that they are, unlikely to get an invite into the main event unless they win the U.S. Open, right?
Right.
So I think it's a fantastic event that is so interesting, and I'm glad that it's 50 plus. They do the same thing in poker. At some point, they also added like a super seniors event that was 65 plus for like the legally defined seniors.
Yeah, I think they even have something like a 75-year-old age championship in chess as well. And by the way, big shout out to our senior players. I believe they are the gold medalist, back-to-back Olympic gold medalist for seniors for the last 2 cycles. So our seniors are pretty good.
Seniors are better than anyone else's seniors.
Yeah, our seniors are better than your seniors. So take that.
Aging well.
Aging well.
There's no one who's technically 65 plus. They're all in between the ages of 52 and 64.
Right.
So, yeah, pretty interesting there. Although I think a lot of these guys, as they get a couple years older, will still be invited to this event. So that average is bound to change. But it's that time of the show, guys. Predictions. Okay. I'll let you guys go first.
Whoa. Okay, Maurice, go for it first. You always complain that you're the last. So this will be the first time in broadcast history.
That's not true.
That's not true. I've been allowed the first before.
Long time ago.
I see that big fat 2 at the top.
It's a big 2.
And he is from Brooklyn on top of it.
What can you say?
But you know what? I'm going to go with Shabalov. He did it last year. I'm seeing him coming back from that early loss and adding up some points. So not maybe the easiest pick after 2 rounds, but I'm going to go with that.
Whoa.
Your pick?
You really took me aback there because I was sure you were going to go with Joel, fraternity, brotherhood, everything. But no, I'm going to go with Gregory Kaidanov.
All right.
That's a great pick. Feel good pick.
I'm going to take Joel Benjamin because his nerves are showing formidable when it counts. And
so far, so good. So
And Bartek Shabalov also agreeing with Maurice. So
wow.
3 unique picks from the team.
And we are off for the third final game.
Critical game, yes. Joel Benjamin versus Gregory Kaidanov. And we've got Ray Lopez on tap.
Yeah, the old Morphe line, not the Berlin defense, but the A7, A6. By the way, notice that Joel, again, we mentioned the fact that he's written books about the openings. He played knight F3 in one game as white and now has opened up with one E2, E4 in another game. So mixing up his openings, and we have an open Rui on the board, something that Gregory Kaidanov has actually played throughout his career, and this will not have come as a surprise to Joel. So we'll see what the players have prepared for each other. And as we came on the show, I had asked you, Jen, about the drawing of lots, and you explained to me that the players did their drawing at the opening ceremony, which was a week or so ago, and so they knew the colors that they would play against one another.
And we know that Gregory loves this line. So definitely Joel's prepared. And I think that's really important because, you know, Gregory is a very practical player. He would be a bad person to use the same technique that Joel used in the first 2 games.
Yes.
He's just so disciplined, Gregory, and so practical. Right. That
exactly.
I think Joel knows that. You could see his body language after that last game. He was like, I'm not going to do that to myself again.
Yeah, he seemed to be clutching his heart like, oh boy, this was the big one. Queen B6. And I must say that as both players have been playing very quickly, I'm quite certain that they are still in the depths of theory. And I would even go far as to say that there's probably at least 1,000 games in the database from this very, very specific position. Black has just played the move Queen B6, inviting an endgame. Let's go around
1,000 games.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Yaz, before we move on, since this is such a critical game? First of all, I'm assuming that the pawn on D5 is taboo because our knight on B1 isn't protected yet. So we're going to run into some problems with rook to D8. And if, immediately or now, it just all looks really dangerous. Okay, so the pawn is a pawn that not even Yasser loves.
yeah, and I love my pawns. A little bit taboo for the time being. Now,
by the way, we did see a queen trade. That was going to be my second question, if we could keep queens on the board, but no, that wasn't the case. Knight A3, and now bishop takes D5 is a real threat, right?
Exactly. And the other nice thing I really like about that, because a moment ago you just said, well, our knight's not developed. If you look at the position, you say, well, what's the square that my knight on B1 should go to? You would say, oh, I'd like it on the D4 square, please. Trade knights, and then I get to play F3 and F4, and the knight on D4 will be blockading the past D5 pawn. So knight A3, instant move by Joel as he's looking to reroute the knight. And like you say, now there is a pawn on D5 that could be vulnerable. So again, I suspect, Maurice, you were about to say maybe 1,000. I was over guesstimating.
It seemed like a lot of moves, a lot of games to be for this position.
Until you start to think about the Open Spanish and how many years, decades, centuries.
Oh yeah,
have they been playing the Open Spanish, right?
Certainly. So I was just talking about this particular line itself.
The Queen E2 Rook D1 variation. I don't know.
I believe which is called the Worrell attack. I believe is the name of the
attack.
Okay. I think that's what it's called, but maybe it's not the variation. But Queen E2 certainly not the most popular way to play with C4. I remember Paul Carey's playing this back in the day, before I was born, of course, but classic games from Carey's with this idea of C4. And it's positional right now for white. White is trying to get something blockading the square D4. Knight on A3 right now, headed to C2 to D4. and seeing what can happen there. I don't know, one weakness for black, maybe a weakness for white as well in E5.
And the nice thing about Joel Benjamin is you can really feel his joy of winning those first two games. I know you're not supposed to like carry the emotions from the games before, but hey, in times like this, if you got happiness, ride with it. Ride
Exactly.
with it. And
Well,
it's fun to win two games in a row in an elite competition. Why not enjoy the feeling?
Exactly. And by the way, I saw, pardon me, in the interview that you were having, Maurice, and this time with Shabalov, he was like almost expressing his frustration, like it's unthinkable that this has been going on so long, but it's like, okay, but at least we get to play chess. Now we can do something these next 3 days. So I really got a feeling like these guys are really happy for a break from their routines.
Yeah.
By the way, you just spoke about Shabalov. Could we please look at his position?
Sure, let's do it.
Because you can always expect, or at least most of the time expect, there's going to be some fire on that chessboard.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this. He stacked a pawn in the opening with the move B5 after queen to D2. And I mean, he just did it a tempo, like bing, let's go. If you could go to this position on move 8 after queen to D2.
Yeah.
Said, same-ish sacrifice, B5, gimme. And Novikov said, I'm taking it. E5 to follow, D5 to keep it going, capture with the knight. Your king's still stuck in the middle of the board, but could be two connected passers after knight takes, and it has occurred. This is some exciting theory here.
Now, I play the same-ish, and I'm familiar with the idea of B5, that Benko gambit, as you said it, Maurice. Queen D2, but I'm really familiar with the move C5 first. Like, this is a prelude that they always play. They always include C5. Nobody has ever just flat out played the move B5 against me. And Igor said, well, isn't it a pawn? And now he's arguing that, well, he's got two connected pass pawns over there. Whatever it is that black's got to do, you better do it quickly, because bishop E2 in castles is game over. So
okay,
you got
still a couple of moves though. I mean, you still do have to play bishop E2 and castles. And by the
so
way,
lower the boom.
Could we look at? I'm looking at the computer bar, and it's saying black down the pawn has not only compensation, but might be slightly better even.
Wow. Okay, we've got to tell me the computer's moves, Maurice, because
I'm not looking at the moves. I'm just looking at the bar.
Okay. I mean, I understand that queen H4 check, G3 queen. Like if you play rook E8, right? And I play bishop E2, just choosing some moves. I can understand that your queen harassing me could keep my king in the center longer than I want it to be there, but I could also meet queen H4 check with king F1 getting ready. Like at the moment, I just kind of messed up my rook. I understand that, but at least your queen isn't harassing me on H3. I'm not sure I see the full compensation that the computer does.
And Alex does neither, because he would have moved already. He's now looking for moves. So clearly he's out of his prep, and now he's looking for a move after this knight C3. What's the hit? It's not A2, it's not B2. I'm really looking, I don't like those pawns even being on the board. Two connected passers. As you said, if he just gets his bishop into the game and cancels,
it's game over.
You're done. So you need a move. You need to add something, add some spice. But F5 doesn't work at all.
No, that just looks like a step in the wrong direction.
So what is
I'm looking at rook E8. I can imagine queen A5 as being some kind of ghost-like moves. I can imagine queen H4. So let's one more look. Rook E8, bishop E2. So now you got to do this. There's just no choice, right? You got to harass me. But this time I'll play bishop F2. And again, I don't see it. As soon as I castle, door is shut.
What do you do about bishop A6? I'm just throwing it out there. Rook E8, bishop E2.
Rook E8, yes,
bishop
rook
E2.
E8. Okay, now that, yeah, because
what about
here,
bishop A6?
The desirable bishop A6 you can take. And now you
read my mind.
Right. So I will have to castle if I can.
But if you castle, now I want to take on E2.
Right. And you got me.
Mm-hmm.
You got me, which means that I have to do something even less desirable. I have to keep E2 defended.
Ooh, now you got me excited.
Now you have A2. Now you have A2, which is at least.
Oh, I'm happy with this.
This
is what I'm getting out of this position. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I think that's right, Maurice. You should be thrilled. Takes queen check, and I don't even get to drive your rook back from A2. Very good. Okay, so that has to be it. Rook E8, bishop E2, bishop A6. Okay, let me try this one. Takes on E5. Okay, in this case,
if I take on E2, I again want to take on E2.
So if you take with the rook, I suppose I wanted to play rook takes.
What?
I suppose I wanted to play rook takes because I'm a little bit concerned my bishop pinned along the E file is an issue.
But can't I just take on D5 and take on A2 and hit your B2 pawn before you castle?
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
I also have Queen A5 check.
This was the one.
No, you have Queen A5, you have Queen D2 at least. But even that I could trade queens and hit. I mean, it's. No, I take on A2.
But I think rook takes A2 is good enough for equality. No castles, rook takes B2, queen C4, good enough for equality. How about that? So, but it does take a very precise order of moves by Shabalov here. Rook E8, one more look. Let's say I take. Now this one, I am definitely getting a little frisky. Yes, yes, that's exactly right. I'm definitely being frisky. He has played.
He did play the move. Yeah. Where would my knight? My knight needs to be on C4. I also want to play D4. No, doesn't quite get there yet. And
takes E5.
If I take on E5, you play bishop.
That pawn on A2 is really an Achilles heel. I mean, darn it, every time I play knight takes D5 or do something like knight takes E2, that rook lands on A2, and I'm an unhappy camper.
If I play bishop takes E5 here in your line, you play bishop E2? Or
bishop
you dare...
takes E5. No, I'm really worried that a queen is about to land against me with check. If I play the desirable knight D5, I keep running into rook takes A2.
Your knight is stuck.
Yucky do. Okay. And if I play king F2.
Oh, I'm not even going to calculate. I'm going to say good.
Just say happiness.
I'm just happy that it happened.
That
like
it
you
that.
decided
Okay.
to do that. I've got to have compensation in this position. So, I mean, for starters, Queen H4 check is funny.
And drop back. Okay.
Because the G3 would have been met by bishop G3.
Exactly.
Was that, Jen? G3 would have. Right. And.
Not that I'm happy, by the way, giving you my dark square bishop, but.
I'm wondering, can I trap your queen down here?
It looks dangerous. It does look dangerous, but I'm not sure it's trappable. Queen H5 forced, and now I go to F5. I think this is compensation for white.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. But I played king G1 a la tempo because I was thinking that, you know what? I'll put my bishop back on F2. I'll be as snug as a bug. I'll play H4, H5, and develop my rook unnaturally, but I will develop my rook. How about this? How about that? the
really
mountains.
asking for it. That's what like,
You see,
but
this was actually my style throughout my whole career. Really, I was provocative, and anybody who wants to look at some crazy games, look at my games with Shabalov. Shabalov, I really, he told me that, you know, I put him off his tournament because I would be like waving a red flag, and he would go, red flag, attack. I'd wave it some more, and then he'd go flying off a cliff.
That's what you're doing to me right now, because I'm like, what? Are you crazy?
I mean,
look at this position, but I can't find a way in. I want to play D4. I want to sack and exchange somehow.
I once played a grandmaster from Poland, not Krasnopolski. It was in Istanbul in the Olympiad.
Was it Krasenkov?
Krasenkov.
Mm-hmm.
And Krasenkov, unfortunately, at the time, his English wasn't so good. So he was speaking to me in Russian, and Shaba was doing the translating, because Shaba's my teammate, obviously. And it was like 2 weeks later, Shabalov came up to me and said, Krasenkov has told him that since our game, he hasn't he hasn't been regular. It just ruined his Olympiad. And moves like King F2 to G1, maneuvers, I wanted to say, like King E1 to F2 to G1 were part and parcel of my play. I oftentimes made king walks, and my opponent electrocution at the board.
Well, how Alex just poured himself some more coffee. Is he going to need it for this position?
Yeah, he may very, very well may. Let's go and jump in and see the game of Dmitry and Patrick Wolff. That's much, much, much more tame. Looks like an English. And okay, we'll have to wait for this game to unfold. White is looking to play B4 and H3 and to force some resolution of the position. Okay.
Meanwhile, in the game with all the points, we've got...
With all the points.
Yeah, we got our perfect score and Gregory Kaidanov.
After knight A3, rook D8, knight C2, knight A5.
Now, the idea of knight A5, like you could take on B3, which Gregory did, but, you know, knight C4 was another potential idea with that move. So Joel is trying to hit back and post up on D4, C6, as we see happen.
Right. Now, one of the things that what Black tends to do from Black's perspective is Black says, okay, I doubled up your pawns. Even if you end up winning this pawn one day, and it'll take you hard work to get there, I'll have this great compensation because I'll always have a pawn to attack. So knight takes B3, and are we caught up with the players? I think we are. And, you know, I will just say that in my view, we're still in Gregory Kaidanov's prep. Like Gregory really, really worked hard on his openings, and he looked very, very deeply, even, you know, into some middle game and late end game positions. And I would say that I would be surprised if Gregory didn't have this on his homework table, because all of the play has been very natural from both sides.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see a potential of a lot of trades in this game. So high chances that it would be a well-played draw, in my opinion. B4 just played, and that potentially opens up more trades. After,
exactly.
You know, what do you do here? Probably move your knight if you take or take.
Probably, I was thinking that Gregory is probably going to just simply move his knight
and not take.
to
What
E6.
What happens if takes?
I'm thinking rook takes, so that I draw the rook away from its attack on the E5 pawn, and knight takes so that D5 is a little bit tender.
And that F3 move now comes in handy, because if I try something like knight E6, which would normally work beautifully, trying to compel you to take, now knight D5, you can just take back with the rook, and you've got that.
Not worry about yeah, I don't have to worry about the back rank mates anymore because, like you said, I have made Luft and
So
B4.
B4 would be favorable for white. So instead, you're suggesting just knight e6 immediately.
Yeah.
With the idea that you don't have time to take a free pawn on a5 because knight e4 is going to distract your knight away because you can't take with a rook because of bishop c6.
Exactly. All so true. And we would get some position like this where, well, maybe this is weak, but maybe this guy is weak as well.
But no.
And by the way, he took on b4. Okay.
Take on b4, and I'm wondering if after, with your idea of rook a8, knight b4, does that mean he's compelled to play bishop e6 to protect the pawn? I don't see another way to protect it unless there's a rook a4 type move. But no, I just take on d5, right?
Yeah, you take
I would
on
just take
d5.
on d5 there. So I think you'd have to play bishop e6, which is, I mean, that's not that horrible, right? It's just a little passive.
It's not horrible, but it feels like a concession of sorts that white has won some control over the position, that he's forced your bishop to take up a passive role of just being a defender. Now, having said that, it's not necessarily terrible or anything, but I would have thought that Gregory would want something more. And Joel seems to be interested in the position. By the way, Joel using a lot more time than Gregory to get here, 20 minutes to 12 minutes. Let's keep an eye on this game as we go to Yermo and Alexander Goldin. This looks also like the players are in theory, although I must say white sure looks to have his pieces on effective squares. Like, look at all of this is good, this is good, this is great, this is good, this is okay. Maybe it would be better here. Whereas look, 3 rather awkward looking pieces. So I'm thinking Yermo did some, excuse me, that was just me trying to clear my arrows. Yermo did something good or Goldin did something bad. And the clocks are telling me that Goldin did something bad. Because this just looks good for white. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
By the way, in the position that we were looking at with Shabalov and Novikov, after some thought, Shabalov had played rook to e8. Novikov played king to f2. Your king march immediately, though, not with taking on e5, avoiding bringing a strong piece to e5 possibly, and king f2 on the board. And I'd be in that camp, the Krasenkov camp. I'd be thinking, you did what?
Electrocuted, yeah.
King up in my face? Gotta find a move here. And Shabalov sinking into thought, as you know, the creativity of this man is extraordinary. He's the reigning champ here, and he is looking. You see there, he just pulled his shirt up over his mouth, up to his nose, the top of the shirt anyway. And he's thinking, his eyes are just darting around. How do I hurt this guy?
You get this a lot in poker because the neck pulsates when you're showing emotions. So they try to hide their neck and like cover their mouth as well. But yeah, hey, by the way, if Novikov does get away with this and somehow wins the game, we should point out he'll likely be tied for the lead going into day 2 because he has 1.5 point now that puts him in a tie for second. So I mean, that depends on Joel's result, but we do think that, even if maybe after this night before idea, he has the edge, obviously there's a lot of trades in that game. So there's some chances of a comeback, even if Joel was to clip a pawn.
Exactly. Let's just jump to the game of Larry versus Shelby. Obviously, Shelby's walking around with the target on his back, but Larry just lost his game to Patrick Wolff. Can he get back to the winner's column in this game? We just saw, let's see, we've seen some trades. It was an en passant, it looks like, and Larry is not in attacking mode so much as he's got some pressure against the backward pawn on d6. And sometimes that's what you got to do, is you just got to keep the pressure on your opponent and get them to play defensive chess. And well, okay, Larry has an edge. We'll leave it there for now. Let's just go back to our points game, as you said, Jen. And interestingly enough, Joel did not trade rooks. He just recaptured.
Well, I
So
think
he's
yeah.
offering his e5 pawn as bait.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think he's just calculating that he's going to win more pawns than his opponent. Rook A1, rook A1, rook E5, rook A8 check. And now if you play bishop E8, I can play knight takes D5, right?
Yep.
And then I have an active rook and I clip the pawn. And now here after knight D5, we're even in pawns momentarily, but how are you going to defend B6? You're going to have to get really passive to do it. And knight D7 allows knight C7 potentially, which I don't know if that's very good or not, but just a point about how passive your pieces are, that I kind of have my pick of what to trade here if I want to. Is this enough for white though?
Doesn't feel, doesn't, I'm not shaking in my boots. Let's put it that way. Now, the thing is you didn't have to necessarily trade rooks. You could have started with the move knight takes D5, Jen. And then I'm kind of feeling a little bit more unhappy, I want to say, as black, because here I don't have the defensive move knight D7.
Right. So rook D5 still fails to rook A8. Oops.
Yep.
So I would have to go after knight
D5. That's why I'm thinking knight D5. Maybe Joel is for choice here.
Now, what do we do here? You're threatening my pawn on B6. And I don't have knight D7, as you point out.
Mm-hmm. And now something like B5, now the idea of rook check and knight C7 starts to become very attractive. So maybe this is
that looks
Joel's entire point. And, you know, we're back to playing the move we didn't necessarily want to play for Gregory, bishop E6. The counterpoint to bishop E6 is that it does make knight D7 possible, and maybe bishop E6, I have to go with that passive move.
Yeah, but advantage for white, will it be enough? Lots of material is going to get traded, but
absolutely
Joel on top in terms of pushing. So what do we got here? You're moving us to Gurevich's game against Wolff?
Yeah, because it looked like Dmitry, there's this pawn that got extended. Pawn went all the way to A4. And Dmitry said, let me take that pawn. And Patrick said, okay, I'm a pawn down, but look what I've got. I've got a great bishop on G7, protecting an excellent knight on D4. This pawn on F4 means that maybe on a good day, I can play queen H4, rook to G5, and play a dark square attack on the king side. I would say good compensation. Good compensation as in, I would prefer to play black. It's easier to play black. This extra pawn on A3 is not going anywhere anytime soon. So I see queen H4, rook G5, and I think that Patrick will be pleased with this position.
I was going to tease you.
What's that?
Tease you and say, hey, take a look at this position where a free pawn for white.
A free pawn.
And you made a fool out of me and said, I like black.
Yeah, I understand.
Compensation.
I got my hand caught in a lot of cookie jars. I mean, a lot. And this looks like one of those cookie jar positions where you can just see, you can see a lot of easy moves for black. If you imagine the queen coming to H4, not easy to boot that queen out. The rook sliding across so that you can threaten H3. And you start to feel the heat. Again, the extra pawn is over here, and that's not where the action is. The action is on the king side. Advantage Patrick.
Speaking of action.
Yes.
Big development in the game between Novikov and Shabalov. critical moment as king f2, e takes d4 by Shabalov. It's not one of those things you want to do. By making exchanges, you always want to know what happens after the exchange occurs on the board. And this exchange brings white's bishop to a centralized square, more centralized square than on e3. You'd prefer that the capture happened on e5, where your knight would take back on e5 and it be centralized by the capture from your opponent. Instead, he's captured, brought the bishop, and then he played knight e5. So 2 moves to get a position that he could have gotten in 1 if white had obliged. And then he, after knight e5, the move bishop to b5 lands on the board. And it's clear white just wants to swing the rook to e1, get the king tucked back on g1, and say, did I steal a pawn?
Yes, you did.
Do you have compensation right now? And the passive bishop to d7 just seemingly giving white a free move. I don't like the last 2 moves for black. I don't like the way that went anyway. And white now trading the bishop off. And it looks like he's just going to get in rook to e1. And
well,
what does he have? Well, Shabalov might be in big trouble right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of the dynamic advantage versus the static advantage of a material pawn. The static advantage doesn't leave the board. Dynamic advantages, dissipate. And yeah, I like the move rook e8 a lot, and I like what happened here, that king f2 was provoked. But this trade, Maurice, I feel that played into white's hands, and that Shabalov didn't make the most out of his position. Now, having said all of that, I'm not exactly sure what suggestion I might have had.
Right, go ahead,
for
make a
black.
move, right?
Yeah, like
Let's be
e5.
concrete.
Yeah, like e5, e4 might have been a move that I would have found attractive, like trying to open up and expose the white king a little bit. Like if you play a move like this, then I can come over here and play for g5 and f5. But you're right. When you look at helping white post up his bishop, and this bishop is actually awesome, right? It kind of like radiates in all the directions. You start to realize, hey man, that bishop is really strong. By the way, it blockades a pawn. And after knight e5 bishop, it looks to me like, my gosh, Igor is just like cruising. He's got a really good position. You can't even play knight c4 here, because if you do something like this could be hurtful. Ouch, right?
But that's a good point you made. Knight c4 is a possibility. So if queen takes now, which I'm surprised he's sitting for so long thinking about it. If queen takes, what did you have against queen? He has played knight c4. And look at the computer bar go absolutely nuts.
What?
Very risky move on his part. And now his eyes are wide as saucers as well. Shabalov, I mean, you make a move like that you shouldn't be shocked by your own move.
I think he missed queen f4. I really do, because once you see queen f4, you go, oh my goodness, that does everything. That keeps contact with the bishop. It has an X-ray attack against this knight on c4. By the way, I'm a piece up and the rook is hanging.
Oh man!
The move's already been played, guys. Queen f4 on the board.
That's such a harmonious move.
By now,
yeah, it looks great.
It's such a harmonious move. Shabalov's last 3 moves, it just the fingertips, the sacrificial elan, and panache. I'm looking for the right word. Am I saying good words? Like just throwing out French words there.
Very, very nice.
Yes.
I can help you with a little Latin if you like. Carpe diem. well, no, that's German.
The skill set, the feel that Shabalov, I'm going to do like a basic English word, the feel that Shabalov normally shows when he sacrifices material, those last few moves didn't feel right. Just didn't seem like he nailed it. He brought a bishop to the middle. He let the bishop go to b5. Then he just plainly offered a trade. Then he played this move knight c4 and forced the queen onto this power square f4. and White's pieces are just blossoming on every single move. And I think Shabalov is in trouble, absolutely, in this position. Things are not looking good for me and VAR's pick right now, as Novikov, no one picked him, but he could be jumping to 2.5 after this game, as his position just looks fabulous right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Maurice. But, you know, you never count Shabalov off. You know, the problem with Shabla in this format, guys, as I said it before, you would think that this type of swashbuckling style is good for rapid and blitz, but it's actually exhausting. You know, he's played his third ridiculously crazy game in a row, right? Whereas normally most of the other players are going to have like 1 or 2 games like this in the tournament, and one of them is going to be against Shabalov himself.
The problem with him is that he's up and down as well. He can either do great, or we've seen him just crash and burn. He has that tendency.
But that's why he has 4 titles. I mean, it's better in a way. Wouldn't you rather have 4 titles and 4 horrible results than, you know, 0 titles, but a lot of 2nd and 3rd places?
Right. 6 seconds? No. Give me.
But yeah, so you have 4 titles.
Right.
I don't see you as an up and down player.
No. I did it at just, you know, the calm, methodical, you know, give me your pawns, babies. You know, I just wanted to say,
as you were always higher, you were higher rated. I mean, you were one of the top, you know, 3 players in the world at some point. Top 10.
I was top 10.
You were top 10.
Number 9. Right. Yeah, but
coming in as a favorite. So 4 titles was like actually not that many for you, right?
No, unfortunately, Rex Singfield wasn't around when I was playing in the U.S. Championships, and our U.S. Championships really had, well, like $60,000 in prizes. They were like 16 players in the tournament, 16 players, and the top 8 got a prize, and the bottom 8 got what was called point money. So you got $100 for every point that you got. And these tournaments lasted 3 weeks, and it was sort of like, you know, 3 weeks, you know, you really had to sacrifice a lot. So a lot of the US Championships weren't attractive tournaments for me, and I had to decline a lot of my invitations to US Championships in favor of other events. Today, the you got players coming from all over the world wanting to get into our US Championship events. So it's a completely different moment of time, and these U.S. Championships are generously funded by the St. Louis Chess Club. So big thank you to the club, but it has transformed our championships. Yeah.
May I say, begin this business of theoretical preparation up to move 13, 14 even. Shabalov had blitzed out his moves. Just whip, drop. He had whipped out, bang. Took on D5, he took knight takes D5. I mean, all this was instantaneous, a tempo, takes. And it was after knight to C3 that he stopped for a moment. And so he looked like he was out of his prep. He finally played rook to E8. And then king F2. Rook E8 was a nice move we liked, but king F2, E takes D4, bringing the bishop into the game.
We didn't like that move.
We didn't like that one. Okay, knight E5, we understand. Bishop to B5.
Not a big fan of knight E5 either.
Okay, but then bishop D7. Was that his only move?
Probably at that point.
But bishop A6 is another idea. If you take the rook, there's a knight D3 check tactic. That was possible. Could have been interesting. But he played bishop D7, more passive, not really Shabalov-like, if you will. And then he lashed out with knight to C4 and queen F4 on the board. And so after all that prep, half his moves at least have been moves that we say, we don't like the way you follow this up.
No.
And he's in a disastrous situation. His clock ticking down now. He is only 344 and counting. It's just, he's put himself in a precipitous situation. Incredible how you can prepare and a couple of moves later, out of your prep and not showing that great form, that delicate, aggressive form that we are used to seeing with Shabalov, and now he looks lost.
Yeah, and there are players that need to play lots and lots of games, like 100, 150 tournament games a year to feel in shape. And for me, Shabalov has always been one of those players that love to play. They're just all over the map. They go from tournament to tournament, and they're used to playing a long sequence, a long series of tournaments in a row. Shabalov just, I mean, he has not this entire year. He's probably been stuck indoors, just like
Good
everybody
point.
else.
Very good point.
So, I mean, he's not, and look at what,
look at this move though.
From the mind of, what on earth? Now, G5 goes to show that he did forget about the knight hanging on C4. Doubtlessly, he was ready to play this position, maybe not, until he realized, ruh-roh, that was a winner as the pin on the D file. So he's had to do something that is, let's face it, guys, a prayer and a hope.
Hoping that the queen goes to like a square where the knight can attack it on E3, like queen F5, so that after bishop D4, rook D4, knight E3, you won't have time to take my rook on E8.
At least
now this is just a madness, but
yeah,
I think
that's probably what he's got to do. He's trying to mix it up. That's it.
Yeah. Where can the queen go that's a safe square where
let's see,
we don't have to worry about all that jazz? A square where you can't play knight E3 at the end of the line. So for instance, G3 or C1.
Or
C1 looks remarkable. C1 actually looks, I love moves like queen C1. Retreating moves, keep your eye on the G5 pawn. Ouch, actually, what do you do?
Yeah, and if you take queen F6, first of all, I have not recaptured this bishop.
Well,
this pawn is hanging with check. Yeah, this looks terrible. This looks completely busto.
What a great move.
Queen C1.
That looks beautiful, I'm going to say. I love retreating moves. At least that's my aesthetic preference, is to see a retreating move like queen C1.
I mean, queen G3 also probably does it.
I was about to say, unfortunately for Shabalov, queen G3 looks really good too. The whole point is, if you, yeah, you're right, you don't lose a piece, but yuck. I mean, yuck.
And he did play queen C1 though. He played queen C1, keeping the eye on that rook on E8 and the pawn on G5. I mean,
exactly.
What can you say? There's just so many threats.
And something like this is really, really curtains too. Looks terrible. Let's leave Shabalov in his own predicament. Larry looks okay. Hasn't broken through. Shelby is hanging in there. Sorry, what about Yermo? Yermo looks very good. Very good.
Nice pawn on D5.
Yeah, it's a beauty. And bishop F4 and means that the pawn on D5 is going to advance to D6. This looks like a very good position for Yermo. Back to Joel Benjamin. Holy smokes, it looks like the cleaning, the cleaners arrived. And it kind of arrived in a variation that, well, I'm surprised that Joel played rook check, because we were looking at knight takes.
Knight D5. Mm-hmm.
We preferred knight D5. It looked like it had more spice. Rook check, and Gregory got in that move knight D7, and that was the key defensive move. And well, this looks very balanced. I don't see a problem here, unless D5. I'm overlooking something. Isn't it time to?
No, that looks. Let's not stick on this one. We have precious seconds to look at stuff. The game you want to go to is Gurevich Wolff, and the G5 move was played by Black. Black's last move was G5. We saw Shabalov do it under suspicious circumstances, but here, this move after Queen E1, G5, and Black is on the hunt. The dark square domination just looks wonderful. Knight E2, hoping to get him off his back with. Just trying to trade pieces off, but isn't G4 coming with force at some point? And that just looks tremendous.
It does.
Yeah, that looks nasty.
It looks like I'm forced to capture. Do I have a choice? And after bishop takes, well, you can end up even taking this pawn. I'm afraid some move like rook g5, but if you wanted to play bishop takes f2, that we have something completely different on the board now. This is a real
Oh, well,
surprise.
the rook on a5 is hanging, right? So that's
Oh,
a2.
thank you. Okay.
Well, lady
Oh,
two,
the
bishop.
rook on a5 is hanging. He is taken, by the way, did Patrick on f3
So there's a
and played g4.
and the rook on a5 is still hanging, but
You look like you're getting mated. If
I know.
Is
Let's
that
see how I
true?
get mated. Pawn takes, and now, okay.
Is this truly mate? Maybe it is.
We had to look, yeah.
Well, I
That's
do
queen
have.
f5 though, right? Or queen h5.
Yeah, I do. I'm still in there with a
That's not
shot,
mate.
aren't I?
Let's try again. Is there anything?
Okay, let's try again. Okay, so from the starting position, we took a rook. You took my pawn. We all agree about that, or do we?
Got to take on h3.
Pawn. Okay, we have to take on h3. Yeah. Okay.
Now we can play bishop.
Slow down.
Bishop
There
e5
we
would
go.
be so deep.
That's
on the
amazing.
previous
That's
move.
great.
Like right now,
that looks beautiful.
Bomb. You get the queen away from g5, and you stop the knight from taking on f4.
Precisely.
Amazing.
I'm going to say that's
cut off-
unbelievable.
That's
We
beautiful.
we cut both crucial defenses, queen f5 as well as knight f4, and we say deal with this, deal with my
That's
threat.
beautiful.
Stunning move, Yaz.
Yeah, nice, right? And maybe it means that in this particular position, don't touch the rook.
Good luck with your position if you don't even win material.
Well, wait a minute. Do I have
The rook's headed to g5, so
the rook
be aware.
is headed
No,
to
if
g5.
you can't take that rook, and you know you're just gonna be in big trouble. Wait, but what did he?
I wrote a book with my old trainer Nikolai Minev. Take my rooks, that was the double rook sacrifice, and Nikolai had some amazing finds of double rook sacrifice. So he took on g4. I like this decision because I think bishop e5 was a winner.
And what about the same type of line though? Pawn takes g4, and if queen a5.
And the rook is headed to h5 in this line. So more possibilities for the rook.
And now your same move, because again, f3, knight f4 has been annoying. So let's just play your move again. Is there f3 here?
That was my question. Is there f3 here? And the answer is likely no, but go ahead and kill me.
Well, let's see, because pawn,
G3? What's wrong with G3?
If you take, I was thinking that maybe I can do some resistance like this, right? Okay, but
let's try.
Yeah, of course.
We are down a whole rook.
A whole rook. What's a rook amongst friends? I mean, come on.
A rook? You're
bishop d4. I was about to play knight takes, expecting that I could defend magnificent. Ooh. No, sir. Bishop d4 check is on your agenda. G3 looks like a winner.
Yeah, that looks good. Rook f2, yeah.
I mean, you have to play rook f2 and
right.
pray that you get out of this alive at some point, which is probably his best defense, actually.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Dmitry is really thinking things over because right here, crazily enough, he has he can't play f3. There's just simply queen h3 and rook h5.
You gotta take the rook. Yeah.
I gotta take the rook now. Now I have no choice. And we've been looking at this and this.
He's got 1 minute left on his clock. 59 seconds to defend this.
Ooh, Patrick Wolff, 4 minutes, but the position looks great, Maurice.
Yeah, Patrick won his last game and is now looking to go 2 in a row, and the rook has been captured. But this attack looks ferocious. Just take and bring the bishop on e5.
Right.
You know you have what is more than enough compensation for this attack. And he's going to be proud of this game, Patrick. He sacked a pawn in the opening, allowing knight takes a4, and then played this idea of just dark square attack, then played g5, g4. Guys, this is This is like a classical game.
It really is, right?
I mean, this is one you'd be proud of if you played in classical chess.
No question about it. Now go ahead and kill me. Guys, F3, G3. I'm assuming G3.
Force.
Rook F2.
I mean, Rook F2 is force. Gotta take it.
Now
I would check you on H4. I don't want to see you running.
On H4.
I just don't want to see you running. Okay, now here we go. You want to play Rook H1. My Rook wants to get to the G file. Oh, well, so King H7?
Novikov did win, and he's now in the lead with 2.5 out of 3. Joel, of course, trying likely to join him if this game against Kaidanov is indeed drawn, although Joel is down to 40 seconds, so.
Well, let's just switch. This looks like Patrick has this game. I love
G8,
your move,
Rook
King
G8
H7, followed by Rook G8. Joel Benjamin and Gregory are in a really intriguing, I must say, I find these, oops, not after that. I was going to say these knight endings very, very intriguing. There's knight C6, knight takes B5 check. The king can just move and the pawn on B4 is undefensible. So it looks like Gregory is just neutralized.
And then Joel will join Novikov, and that tie for first is we'll probably have a number of people on 2 points. Kaidanov, it looks like Wolff will join him. And yeah, maybe just him. Yeah, that sounds about right. So we'll have 2 people with 2.5 and 2 with 2.
Now, in this position, I'd be reluctant to play King E7. I think there might be my reluctance would stem from having to worry about a king and pawn endgame where my opponent's king is already on my side of the board. And that was why we saw King D7 by Gregory. Good, clever
All right,
decision.
let's get to the sharp, crazy game is the game between Gurevich and Wolff. And the variations we saw are occurring 52.
Rook F2, okay.
Specific variation we saw with Rook F2 on move 27. And it looks like you have to take this rook. I don't see how you could even dream of
Otherwise,
another move.
the rook is going to go to G2.
There is a possibility of King G7 and Rook H8, but Rook G2 and King F1 and Knight G1 should stop that. So I think he has to take the rook, although he is pondering it.
30 seconds left for Wolff, 40 seconds left for Dima.
I see.
Wow.
Patrick
so
has, you said 30 seconds? I see him with one.
Minute
20.
120.
Yeah, 120 now.
Minute 20.
He's now.
Okay. So Rook F2, but I really like what you did. So here I had some dreams of maybe running for the hills with Rook G1, but I liked your Queen H4.
And so does Patrick. There he is. He's playing it.
And so does Patrick. So you're channeling your former, well, okay, principal, I guess. So you're the trainer. He's the principal, right?
I was
and then King H2.
King G2. He's seeing the whole line, and King H7
that was
instantly.
The whole line.
And look at Dima there, just hit his head. His hand was on top of his head. He realized he missed this possibility, but now Rook G1.
Trying to hang on.
Hoping against hope. It looks like there's going to be some checks flying at him.
But then you've got this sequence where you can force the king to F1. And I think...
Yeah, so you had Bishop D4.
Is that too pretty?
You had Bishop D4 before. When the king was on F2, you didn't have to force him. No, back up. Back up a move. Back up a move. Not this position. This one. Back up one move.
Where the queen's on H3, so you can...
Yes, so King F1. And we're seeing the line.
Yeah. Nice one.
Check on H3.
Check on H. Right.
And we're seeing it in King F2. Now Bishop D4.
Now Bishop D4. Oh, that's too pretty. Bishop D4. That's like a trap door that just closes snap.
So that means now he has to play King E1, which he has done.
Done it.
And a trade has occurred.
On board after Knight G1. Look at that sad knight. Queen H1 played.
Queen H1 with the idea of Bishop D4.
That sounds like must be the idea.
But I've got. Queen
I don't understand Queen.
check.
I don't understand Queen H1.
Queen where?
I don't understand
Queen
this
H1.
move. Queen H1, King F1.
He could have played Queen G2.
7 seconds left, and he played Queen B6.
He closed his own door. C5 should kill him.
C5.
Oh no!
Oh my goodness!
And he's played C5.
He could have played King F1, and he has the chance. But now he's allowed this move C5 in time pressure. He had only 2 seconds left.
Oh,
but
Patrick wins. 2 points. 2
Amazing.
points for Patrick Wolff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dimitri.
From start.
Queen H1 was a real error. It looks like he could have just played something direct like Queen G2, no? And the knight has got to move.
That was the one.
That
was the move.
You just take everything.
That was what I expected.
And look at Patrick. Patrick is like, what the heck?
He had, this is the thing that my colleagues they love to do. They really do. Is the moment the game is over, they love to go to the engine and find the truth. They want to know, was I winning? Did I make the right move? Did I have the right understanding? And instantly they moved. Sum up this round for us, Jen, because that was quite an eventful finish.
That's right. Well, we got 2 players tied for the lead. Igor Novikov, who won 2 games in a row, winning against Shabalov and Getz, round 2 against Getz and round 3 against Shabalov. And then he's joined by Benjamin, who won his first 2 games and then drew against Gregory Kaidanov, tried a little bit in that ending game, but couldn't get anywhere. Might add that Joel has played Gregory and Shabalov already. So 2 of the favorites. One might say, although technically by rating, Larry is the favorite. He's not doing so well so far, guys. He did draw that game against Shelby Getz. So Getz playing really well with the black pieces.
And we are with one of the classiest gentlemen in all of U.S. chess, if not world chess. My former trainer as well. He helped me on my road to becoming a grandmaster. He was the trainer that I had. So I thank him and I'm grateful for him, and I can call him a good friend. Gregory, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay, Maurice?
Yes, we can absolutely hear you. Gregory, your thoughts on playing this day online chess for the U.S. Championship? Did you ever think it would come to this?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nobody could expect that. So, yeah, I was very nervous because obviously it was the first official online tournament for me. Okay, let me disconnect. Okay, so this should be fine. So I was very, very nervous during the first game. So it was very, very nervous situation, but amazingly I did well.
Yeah, that was the game that you won against Patrick Wolff with the sacrifices.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those sacrifices which was kind of easy to decide on because you have a guaranteed draw, right? And when we got close to this position, I looked at knight takes d6 and I saw that once again I'm not risking anything. Like for example, if he moves queen away, queen b7, queen g5 check, king f8, and of course rook h6 is probably the move. But just in case, right? But just in case, I can play queen h6 back and force a draw, queen h8, queen f6, right? So this is one of those sacrifices which is easy to decide on because you have a guaranteed draw. But I saw rook h6 and I was going to check it when it was getting closer.
Very practical sacrifice indeed. Good game to win. You're feeling about your other 2 games?
Game against Dmitry was nothing special in the sense that I felt like I got a little better position after the opening, but I felt he played very accurately, and this is one of those grandmaster draws which both sides played well. At least that's how I felt. I didn't see any improvements for myself. But game against Joel was very tough. Yeah. He got a slightly better position right after the opening, and I was defending the whole game, and the position was very difficult. Yeah, so I always was on the verge of losing a pawn, and somehow I survived. But it was tough.
Gregory, am I right in saying this, and Yasser was very shocked by it, but have you ever won a U.S. national title, whether it be the U.S. championship or U.S. senior?
I played 18. No, I played 18 championships in a row. Joel was worrying about his record because his record is 21, but I couldn't make it there. So 21 in a row.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so what would it mean for you to win this one?
It would be nice, but that's not the same as winning a real U.S. championship. Moreover, I can tell you something I never told anyone, that when I was in my 40s, I was watching those senior championships, world championships and so forth, and I said to myself, I'm never going to play in the senior championship. It's like, it's below my dignity. I always will play in the real tournaments, regardless of how well or bad level perform. I will never play in senior championship.
And what changed your mind?
Yeah, but of course.
So why did you change your mind?
Like championship, in the sense that it's basically a replay of one of the 1990s U.S. championships, right?
Right.
Yeah. So playing my friends and rivals, over, we probably played 15 years, against each other. So, but it feels good to see them at the chessboard, even though online this time, and play against them. It's definitely better to play online than not to play at all.
That is really wonderful. Great sentiment, Gregory. Thanks for joining us. Always a class act. Good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you,
Gregory. Thank you.
Good luck.
Never say never.
Well, he pegged it just right, that his sacrifices against Patrick were just, he wasn't taking risks. He always had the draw, and he survived. He survived this game with Joe Benjamin. He said that Joe put a lot of pressure on him throughout.
But ironically, Kaidanov won against Patrick in the first round, and that seemed to be the ideal warm-up for Patrick Wolff as he went on to win his next two games, as he has all decisive results so far in this tournament. Novikov and Benjamin tied for first with 2.5. Kaidanov and Wolff, the only other two players with a plus score. And look at
or even 50%.
Exactly. That's unusual. No 50%. Wow. But we do have the ever exciting Alexander Shabalov with us.
Shaba in the building. Alex, we haven't seen each other in a long time. How are you feeling right now, my friend? It seems you had a tough day today. Didn't quite get what you wanted out of the games.
I'm not sure if he's hearing us yet, because he doesn't seem like he's responding to your charming opening, Maurice.
Yes.
I don't think he hears us yet.
I don't think he is.
Maybe I think there's somebody who has contacted with him. We'll get back to Shabalov, but he, what a tumultuous day. But Shabalov is just a player you love to have in the tournament, because every time you look at his board, there's something exciting happening. Unfortunately today, that only gave him 1 point out of 3.
Yeah, he flagged one game that was wild with Joel, and then he lost the game that really wasn't him. That just wasn't him against Novikov. he contributed
Nice.
to the leaders being where they are. They both got him today. So
if not for Shabalov, we would have no leaders, Maurice.
it's true. We had a couple of draws out of those games, but it actually is pretty crazy that we only have 4 players over 50%. One of them being Joel Benjamin, straight out of Brooklyn. Let's see if we get Joel on. And I know he's living in New Jersey right now. Joel, first of all, can you hear us? And congratulations.
I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
perfectly.
can hear you.
Okay.
Indeed. Joel, you know, I brag about Brooklyn, of course, you know, repping Brooklyn, of course.
Yeah.
But there you go. And then I'd have to say, heart palpitations today. I mean, you really did it in those first 2 games. You had us all on the edges of our seats with the time pressure.
This particular game you have on board, when it ended, I was like this. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Fortunately,
we saw you holding your chest. Don't have that on us on air, please. Or at all. But what do you think? Do you think it's just getting in form, getting in shape, having not played rapid chess online?
Well, it's like this. The elite players in the world, they play this type of time control a lot, and they're really good at it. And we look at their games, we analyze their games like they're real games. But us semi-retired guys, we don't play this. I mean, I never do. So it's very hard to kind of find the right way to go about it. And I know I'm taking too much time, and my opponents were taking too much time. And so the first 2 games just, you know, descended into clock. So hopefully as we go on, we'll get better at it. But you know, the handling the clock was very difficult.
You did play a very solid game in the last game, however. It looked like you had some chances.
Well, I had good preparation, but I'm pretty sure it was just winning. Now I'm thinking about it. I think I should have gone knight c7, knight a6, and come with the king. Probably Yasser had worked it all out, you know. But I'm not as good an endgame player as Yasser, unfortunately.
At what moment? Somewhere around these parts, you figured, Joe?
Yeah. He played knight d7. Yeah, knight f5. I think that was okay. Yeah. And after bishop f7, I have a real dilemma because I can't quite win the pawn directly, but I think that's probably winning, knight c7. Knight a6. And now come with the king. The king gets e3 in time, and I don't know. I wasn't totally sure that he couldn't get the c4 with the knight. Maybe, you know, but I think I have time to get my king to d4. Yeah, king e3. Yeah, the king gets to d4. But unfortunately, I see these things, but I make the wrong choice. I miss this knight getting to a6, you know, the knight finding a nice passive square, you know.
And then it ended up only in a draw, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, the knight is good enough there. And,
yeah,
definitely.
He was in some trouble in this game. Yeah.
You mentioned. Go ahead, Jen.
I was wondering if he could have played like king e7, knight f7, and then knight c4 check and somehow saved it. It's always going to be really like a tempo game there. But it did seem that you were resolved to play faster in this game. Did you feel like you'd had enough in the first 2 games, being in the last few seconds?
This was preparation. Well, it was preparation up until
because the pairings came out like a whole week ago.
Knight takes b3 is not a good move. Knight c4 is better. So I was really more expecting knight c4. I think white has an edge here after knight takes b3.
Right, you were expecting knight c4 because if
knight c4, I think is a better move. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just better for. Hold on a second. Can I go back?
Yeah.
Can we go back a couple? Because I could have taken his rook first.
Yeah, that's what Yaz was looking at first.
I think that wins the d pawn, but you can win the d pawn and then still not necessarily win the game with rooks on the board. Bishop e6. Later, I saw the move knight d c6. I think that's strong. I didn't see it at the time. And that, I think that just wins the pawn, but I'm not totally sure that it's enough to win the game, because the B pawn still might drop.
Definitely sharp position indeed.
Yeah.
Chances. We're going to have a lot more chances like that coming up. As you said, you're playing against these players. What does it feel like to be playing? Gregory said it's like a 90s party. What does it feel like to be playing against all these players that you played for so many years? And you have the record of 21 U.S. championships in a row. Now you're back with the old gang.
I think it's more than that, but I kind of lost track of myself. It's been so long, you know. I thought it was 23. But anyway, it's great to play these guys, you know. It's a really wonderful challenge, and I love I love seeing them play, and I love their artistry. Although I don't know if there was all that much art today, but there was definitely struggle, you know, there was definitely fight, and that
kind of connection.
I think, yeah, it seems like we might have lost Joel. I hope we're still up, but I did confirm it was 26 actual U.S. championship appearances for Joel Benjamin.
And we have Alex Shabalov. Hi, Alex. Shaba.
How are you?
Good.
Hi, Yasser. Hi, how's it going?
Well,
Alex, you had a tough day today. One position you lost on time. The other one seems like you mixed up your attacking moves. What happened?
Yeah, well, against Joel, I was just, I don't know, I was sleeping in the end. I thought I got like more than 10 seconds for the last move. And when I think I spent 2, but somehow I lost on time. So, but probably by that moment, I already like mixed things up, and position is not that good anymore. Well, that was my impression. So I just didn't find the correct plan after pretty decent opening, I guess. So that's the first one. Okay, the second game, well, I played something new because, well, we spent some time with like training with Yermo, like played each other before this tournament, so we knew each other really well, what we're going to be playing, and I just really wanted something that we did not touch. Yeah, turned out to be like, well, it's a little crazy but interesting. I think with few games were played with this idea recently, and not that easy for Black to find a precise way to equalize if you don't know it, if you did not analyze it. So I go with the board, 25 minutes. Well, it didn't work for Yerma here. Okay. And the last one, yeah, I think I took, the prep took Igor by surprise, but he found like a nice, safe way to deal with it. And when I had a choice to, like, couple of choices, yeah. After King F2, there was a E4, that would lead into a very interesting position, right? And of course, after, yeah, it's about equal. And that's something to fight. That's because what I did, taking in knight e5 was also good, but I had to find bishop a6 instead of bishop d7. And that's just looks to me white has to force a draw after takes, rook e1, and rook h2 e1, which is not a simple move to play on. Yeah, and I think queen h4 and just to pick up the pawn on h2 is good enough, right? Because you cannot play king g1 because of knight takes f3, and right, so you have to play king f1, and I think queen takes h2 f4 and queen h1, queen h4 is just perpetual. And this is the route Black had to go. But for some reason, I thought that I might be even winning with bishop d7 and completely missed queen f4. It's just, for some reason, this square did not register with me when I looked at this position, which looked really, really promising for Black. So many threats, so many checks from all over the place, but queen f4, just a refutation. If not for this move, well, you know. So this is it. This is how you score 1 out of 3.
We know you're an optimistic person. Your feelings about the next 2 days?
Well, obviously I have to regroup, to recover, and probably go for less complicated positions. I mean, the bows against Joel and the last one turn out to be too much for me now. I mean, maybe on this time control, I just have to go for something simpler, like against Yermo, the position was like really, 1, 2, 3, and it's like nothing to think about it. But this apparently was too complicated.
Hearing Shabalov and simple in the same sentence, guys, something about that bothers me. I don't know why.
Doesn't compute. I like the complicated. Keep it complicated.
Simpler doesn't mean simple.
I wish. All right.
We'll see if he keeps it to it. I don't think so, guys. I think it's still going to be some crazy Shabalov games tomorrow. And
thanks, Alex.
Look forward to it. Good luck.
Thanks for your analysis and your good mood. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye now. And where do we stand, Jen?
Joel Benjamin and Igor Novikov with 2.5 points each, and Gregory Kaidanov and Patrick Wolff just half a point behind with 2 points, but nobody with 1.5 points. So we dropped down a whole point for 6 players who are shared 5th through 10th. Larry,
wow. What a result.
Alexander. That's kind of cool, because if the tournament ended here, everybody could say I finished in the top half of the cross table.
Exactly. Nicely put.
And we do have 2 more days of this U.S. Senior Championship action coming up. Tomorrow, rounds 4 through 6. And then we finish it off on Monday, October 19th, with our final 3 rounds and a potential playoff.
By the way, I should note Ed Gonzalez, who is the U.S. Championship trivia genius. He messaged me and said, Joel played in 23 straight and 26 overall. So that is the correct stat line.
Impressive. That's a record that, well, it's going to be very hard to break.
Yeah, we're going to have to look to, I wonder how many Nakamura's played now so far. Well, we'll find out as we have so much chess left for you. 2 more days of the U.S. Senior Championship. Then we have the Women's and the U.S. Chess Championship. So thank you for joining us for this championship October. There's a lot more to come. And we will see you tomorrow, same time, same place, uschesschamps.com. And we'll be starting at 12:50 in St. Louis.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.